My daughter gave her father-in-law a $20,000 cruise package for Father's Day and tossed a $2 lottery ticket at me like I was a beggar. She laughed and told me to split the winnings if I got lucky. Well, I did get lucky. I won $95 million. And the lesson I taught her and her greedy husband is something they will carry to their graves. Before I tell you how I dismantled their lives piece by piece, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments if you have ever been underestimated by your own flesh and blood. My name is Joe Bennett, and I am 70 years old. I spent 40 years as a general contractor building the foundations of this town with my own two hands. I know the difference between solid oak and cheap veneer, and my daughter Emily has become nothing but veneer. Last Sunday was supposed to be a celebration of fathers. But as I walked into the backyard of the house, Emily and her husband Liam were renting. I knew immediately where I stood in the hierarchy. The property was a sprawling MC mansion in a gated community, the kind of place people rent when they want to pretend they have money they do not actually possess. There was a long table set up under the shade of the expensive pergola draped in white linen and set with crystal glasses. That was where Preston sat. Preston is Liam's father, a man who made a career out of being a middleman in questionable real estate deals. He was wearing a linen suit that probably cost more than my truck, laughing loudly with a glass of scotch in his hand. Emily and Liam were hovering around him, filling his glass, laughing at his unfunny jokes, and making sure the sun didn't hit his face. I looked for my seat. There was no chair for me at the main table. Instead, Emily pointed to a wobbly white plastic folding table set up near the grill in the direct sunlight. "Hey, Dad," she said without even hugging me. "Just sit over there. Okay, we need the main table for Preston's business partners, and we didn't want you to feel uncomfortable with all the shop talk." Uncomfortable. That was the word she used. As if my 40 years of running a successful construction business meant I couldn't understand business. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and walked to the plastic table. I sat down and watched them. I watched my daughter. The girl I had raised alone after my wife Catherine passed away. The girl whose college tuition I paid for by working 16-hour days transform into a stranger. She was trying so hard to impress Preston and his friends that she looked desperate. The lunch was an ordeal. They were eating steaks and lobster tails at the main table while Liam brought me a burnt hamburger on a paper plate. "Sorry, Joe," he said, not even looking me in the eye. "The chef messed up the count on the lobsters, but hey, burgers are more your speed anyway, right?" I looked at the charred meat. It was an insult on a plate. But I ate it. I ate it because I am a father, and I wanted to believe that somewhere under all that spray tan and hairspray, my little girl was still in there. I was wrong. Then came the time for the gifts. This was the moment Emily had been planning for weeks. She stood up, clinking her fork against her crystal glass, demanding silence. Everyone at the main table turned to look at her. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, sitting alone in the sun, and watched. "Preston," she began, her voice trembling with a sycophantic sweetness that made my stomach turn. "You have been such an inspiration to Liam and me. You work so hard and you deserve the absolute best. We wanted to get you something that matches your class and style." She handed him a thick gold envelope. Preston took it with a feigned look of surprise, peeling it open slowly while everyone held their breath. He pulled out the brochure and the tickets. "Well now," he boomed, his voice carrying across the yard. "Royal Caribbean, the owner's suite. Now this is a gift," Emily beamed. "It is an all-inclusive 14-day cruise through the Mediterranean," she announced to the applause of the guests. "First-class airfare included. It cost us $20,000, but you are worth every penny, Preston." $20,000. I did the math in my head. I knew for a fact that Liam was behind on his car payments because the bank had called my house looking for him last week, since I was listed as a reference. They were drowning in debt, yet they spent $20,000 to impress a man who barely paid attention to them. Preston stood up and hugged Emily, then Liam. "That is what I call appreciation," he said, looking over at me with a smirk. "Take notes, Joe. This is how you raise children to succeed." The guests laughed. I felt the heat rise in my neck, and it wasn't from the sun. I kept my hands folded on the plastic table, my knuckles turning white. I waited. I foolishly waited to see if my daughter had anything for me. "Oh, right," Emily said, as if she had just remembered I was there. She didn't walk over to me. She stood by the main table and dug into her purse. "Dad," she called out, "I got you something too." She pulled out a small flimsy card and tossed it across the gap between the patio and the grass. It fluttered and landed in the dirt a few feet away from my table. "I stopped at the gas station on the way to pick up the ice," she said casually. "I know you like to gamble sometimes, so I grabbed you a scratch-off. It was $2, but hey, the jackpot is huge. Maybe you will get lucky and finally be able to fix up that old shack you live in." The silence that followed was deafening to me, though the rest of the table erupted in chuckles. I stood up slowly. My knees popped a reminder of the decades of hard labor I had put in to ensure Emily never went hungry. I walked over to the dirt and picked up the ticket. It was a shiny piece of cardboard with the words "Millionaires Club" printed on it. $2. She had spent $20,000 on a man who treated her like a servant, and she threw a $2 gas station ticket at the man who had sacrificed his life for her. Preston laughed, taking a sip of his scotch. "Careful there, Joe," he shouted. "Don't spend it all in one place. You know, Emily, we should have gotten him a cruise too, but I don't think they allow that old truck of his on the deck." Liam chimed in, laughing nervously to please his father. "Plus, Dad gets seasick. He couldn't handle the ocean. He is a land animal." That was the moment the dam broke inside me. Seasick. I looked at Liam's soft hands, manicured nails, a man who had never done a day of physical labor in his life. He didn't know. He didn't know because he never asked. He didn't know that I had spent 4 years on a destroyer in the Pacific Navy. I had navigated typhoons that would make Liam cry for his mother. I had seen waves taller than this rented house. I wasn't afraid of the ocean. I respected it, just like I respected hard work. Just like I respected family. Things none of these people understood. I looked at the ticket in my hand. Then I looked at Emily. She was smiling, waiting for me to say thank you. She expected me to be grateful for the scraps. She expected me to play the role of the poor, grateful old man. I didn't say a word. I took out my wallet, carefully placed the ticket inside, and put the wallet back in my pocket. I looked at my daughter directly in the eyes. The distance between us was only 20 feet, but in that moment it felt like an ocean. I turned around and started walking toward the gate. "Hey, Dad!" Emily shouted, her voice taking on that shrill tone she used when she wasn't getting her way. "Where are you going? We haven't even cut the cake yet." I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I opened the side gate and the metal latch clicked loudly in the silence. Boyle Preston yelled out, "Looks like someone is a sore loser. Can't handle a little joke, Joe." I paused for a second, my hand on the gate. I could hear them. I could hear the disrespect dripping from their voices. "Don't be like that, Dad," Emily yelled out one last time. "And hey, if that ticket wins, you better remember who bought it for you. We split it 50-50, right?" Her laughter followed me out to the street. I walked to my old Ford truck, the one they made fun of. I got in and started the engine. It roared to life, a solid, reliable sound in a world of fake plastic noise. I drove away from that rented mansion, away from the lobster shells and the crystal glasses and the daughter who had just broken my heart for the very last time. I drove straight to my house. It is a small wooden house on a large plot of land near the edge of town. Emily calls it a shack. I call it the home where my wife and I built a life. It sits on 4 acres of land that developers have been eyeing for years, but I never sold because Catherine loved the oak trees in the back. I walked into the kitchen. It was quiet. The only sound was the humming of the refrigerator. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I used to help Emily with her math homework. I pulled out the ticket. I grabbed a coin from the jar on the counter. It was an old quarter smooth from years of use. I looked at the ticket. $2. The price of my dignity in my daughter's eyes. I started scratching. I didn't expect anything. I just needed something to do with my hands so I wouldn't punch the wall. I scratched the first number. Match. I scratched the second. Match. I scratched the third. I stopped. My heart did a strange flutter in my chest. I scratched the rest of the row. Every single number matched. I scratched the prize box at the bottom. I had to put on my reading glasses. I wiped them on my shirt and looked again. I counted the zeros. Then I counted them again. Then I went to the sink, splashed cold water on my face, and came back to count them a third time. $95 million. I sat there in the darkening kitchen as the sun went down. I didn't scream. I didn't jump up and down. I felt a cold calm wash over me. A few hours ago, I was the poor old man eating a burnt burger at a plastic table. Now I was richer than Preston could ever dream of being. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over Emily's contact. The instinct was there. The fatherly instinct to call her to share the good news, to say, "Look, honey, we are safe. We are set for life." But then a notification popped up on my screen. It was a text message from Emily sent 10 minutes ago. It read, "Dad, you really embarrassed me today. Walking out like that in front of Preston was so rude. He is trying to help Liam with a business deal and you made us look like trash. Next time wear a suit or don't bother coming, and don't ask us for money this month, we are tight because of the cruise gift." I stared at the message. The words burned into my retinas. Trash. Rude. Don't bother coming. I looked at the ticket sitting on the table. $95 million. I turned off my phone. I walked over to the picture of Catherine on the mantel. I touched the frame. "They think I am trash, Catherine," I whispered to the empty room. "They think I am nothing." I took the ticket and placed it inside my old family Bible right next to our marriage certificate. I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. The next morning I woke up before dawn. I put on my best suit, the one I wore to funerals and weddings. It was 10 years old, but pressed and clean. I drove into the city to the office of Vera Sterling. She had been Catherine's lawyer years ago, a shark of a woman who specialized in estate planning and asset protection. She was the only person I trusted to handle this. When I showed her the ticket, she didn't gasp. She just closed her office door, locked it, and poured us both a cup of coffee. "Joe," she said, her eyes sharp as flint, "this changes everything. Do you want to tell your family?" I showed her the text message Emily had sent me. I told her about the cruise. I told her about the plastic table. Vera nodded slowly. "So we are doing this the hard way," she said. "I want to protect this money," I told her. "I want to make sure they can't touch a dime of it unless I say so. And I want to create a blind trust. I don't want my name in the papers. I don't want them to know it's me." "We can do that," Vera said, pulling out a legal pad. "We will form an LLC. The Lottery Commission allows anonymous claiming through a trust in this state. To the world, the winner will just be the Silent Oak Trust. No one will connect it to Joe Bennett, the retired contractor." We spent the next 4 hours signing papers. When I walked out of her office, I was technically a multimillionaire, but I got back into my old truck and drove home as if nothing had changed. I stopped at the grocery store and bought a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. I was preparing for war, and the first rule of war is the element of surprise. I decided I would play the role they had cast me in. I would be the poor, broke, pathetic old man they thought I was. I would let them show me exactly who they were when they thought I had nothing. And once they had dug their own graves, I would be the one to fill them in. 2 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon, I was working in the garden when I heard a car pull up. It was Emily's Range Rover. She parked in the driveway, but she didn't get out right away. I saw her checking her makeup in the mirror. Liam was with her. This was strange. They never visited during the week. They barely visited at all unless they wanted something. I wiped the dirt from my hands and walked to the porch. They got out of the car. Emily was holding a fruit basket, but even from a distance I could tell it was the clearance basket from the supermarket, the one with the bruised apples and the bananas that were turning black. "Hi, Dad," she called out, her voice pitching up into that fake, cheerful register she used when she wanted a favor. "We were just in the neighborhood and thought we would check on you." I watched them walk up the path. Liam was looking around the property, scanning the yard, not with appreciation, but with calculation. He was looking at my land like a butcher looks at a cow. I opened the screen door. "Come in," I said. "To what do I owe the honor?" Emily set the rotting fruit basket on the kitchen table. "Oh, we just felt bad about Sunday," she lied effortlessly. "We know you were upset. We wanted to make sure you were okay." I looked at the fruit. "They brought me garbage and called it a gift." "I am fine," I said. "Just busy with the house." Liam cleared his throat. "Actually, Joe, that is what we wanted to talk to you about." The house, here it comes, I thought. The shark had smelled blood. "What about the house?" I asked, playing the confused old man. "Well, Dad," Emily said, sitting down and gesturing for me to sit too. "Liam and I have been looking at your finances. We know your pension isn't much. And this place, it is falling apart, Dad. It is too much for you to manage alone." The house was not falling apart. I maintained it perfectly. But I nodded my head, acting frail. "It is a lot of work," I admitted. "Exactly," Liam said, leaning forward. "So we have a solution. We have a business opportunity, a way to help you." "And what is that?" I asked. "We think you should sell the house," Emily said quickly. "Sell the land. We know a developer who is interested. He is offering $400,000 cash." $400,000. I almost laughed. Vera had run a property valuation for me that morning. The land alone was worth $2 million because of the new highway expansion being planned nearby. My daughter was trying to swindle me out of $1.6 million. And then what I asked. Where would I live? "Oh, Dad," Emily said, reaching out to touch my hand, her skin cold and dry. "That is the best part. You would give us the $400,000 to invest in Liam's new business venture. It is a sure thing. And in exchange, you can come live with us. We will fix up the guest room. You will never have to be alone again." I looked at my daughter. I saw the greed in her eyes. She didn't want me. She wanted the capital. She wanted to feed me into her husband's failing business schemes. I pulled my hand away. $400,000, I said, scratching my chin. "That sounds like a lot of money. But I thought you two were rich. You just spent $20,000 on a cruise. Why do you need my little house money?" Emily's face tightened. "That was a gift, Dad. This is business. We are trying to help you. You are one fall away from breaking a hip and dying alone here." The cruelty was casual. It slipped out so easily. I stood up. "I will think about it," I said. Emily stood up too, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Don't think too long, Dad. The offer expires in a week. Don't be selfish. We are offering you a way out of this dump." They left, leaving the basket of rotting fruit on my table. I watched them drive away. They had no idea that the dump they were standing in was owned by a man who could buy their entire neighborhood. I picked up a bruised apple and tossed it into the trash. They wanted my house. They wanted my dignity. but they were about to find out that Joseph Bennett was not for sale. The game had just begun. The drive home from Emily's rented mansion felt longer than usual. My old Ford truck rattled over the asphalt, a familiar vibration that usually comforted me, but today it just felt like my own bones shaking in their sockets. I kept hearing Preston's laughter echoing in my ears, a sound that grated against my soul like sandpaper on fine wood. They thought I was nothing. Just an old man with dirty fingernails and a truck that smelled like sawdust and gasoline. I pulled into the gravel driveway of my home. It was a modest place, a two-bedroom craftsman I had built with my own hands 40 years ago. The paint was peeling slightly on the porch railing, and the roof needed a few shingles replaced, but it stood strong. It had weathered storms, raising a child alone and the crushing silence of widowhood. It was more than a house, it was a testament to survival. I walked inside and the silence greeted me. It wasn't a lonely silence, usually. It was the quiet of a job well done at the end of the day. But tonight, it felt heavy. I didn't turn on the overhead lights. I didn't want to see the emptiness. I just clicked on the small brass desk lamp in the corner of the living room, the one Catherine used to read by. Its yellow glow pooled on the scratched oak table. I sat down, my joints popping a symphony of old injuries and hard labor. I pulled the wallet from my back pocket. The leather was worn soft, the shape of it molded to my body over the years. I slid the ticket out. That flimsy piece of colored cardboard Emily had tossed at me like a scrap of meat to a stray dog. $2. That was the value she placed on me. I grabbed an old quarter from the ceramic bowl on the table. It was a 1965 Washington quarter, silver around the edges. I stared at the ticket. I wasn't a gambling man. I believed in work. You work, you get paid. You build it right, it stands. Gambling was for people who didn't trust their own hands. But Emily had told me to get lucky. She had mocked me with hope. I scratched the latex coating off the first line. The sound was loud in the quiet room. A scratchy, abrasive noise. 7, 12, 31. I scratched the next line. My winning numbers. 7, 12, 31. I stopped. My breath caught in my throat, a sudden hitch that felt like a skipped heartbeat. I scratched the rest furiously, the gray dust coating my calloused fingertips. 44, 58, Powerball 4. I looked at the numbers printed on the bottom. They matched. Every single one of them. I leaned back in the chair, the wood creaking under my weight. I didn't scream. I didn't leap into the air. I didn't feel a surge of joy. I felt a cold numbness starting at my fingertips and spreading to my chest. $95 million. I read the zeros again. It was a number that didn't make sense in my world. My world was measured in board feet, in hourly wages, in the cost of lumber and concrete. This was abstract. This was enough to buy the entire subdivision Emily lived in and bulldoze it to the ground. My eyes drifted to the mantelpiece where Catherine's photo sat in a silver frame. She was smiling, that soft, knowing smile she had when I would come home exhausted and dirty. "We did it, Kate," I whispered to the empty room. "We finally caught a break." The instinct hit me then, sharp and undeniable. I had to tell Emily. She was my daughter. She was Catherine's daughter. Despite the insults, despite the burnt burger and the plastic table, she was my flesh and blood. This money could change everything. It could pay off Liam's debts. It could buy them a house they actually owned. It could secure my future grandchildren. I reached for my phone, my hand trembling slightly. I unlocked the screen, the blue light harsh in the dim room. I pulled up her contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. I could hear her voice in my head, screaming with delight, apologizing for everything, telling me I was the best father in the world. But before I could press the button, a text message notification slid down from the top of the screen. It was from her. I opened it. "Dad, You really embarrassed me today. Walking out like that in front of Preston was so rude. He is trying to help Liam with a business deal, and you made us look like trash. Next time wear a suit or don't bother coming. And don't ask us for money this month, we are tight because of the cruise gift. I read it once, then I read it again. The words weren't just text on a screen, they were a verdict. Trash. That is what she called me. Rude. That is what she thought of my dignity. Don't bother coming. I lowered the phone slowly. The light from the screen illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air. The excitement I had felt seconds ago evaporated, leaving behind a residue of pure, cold iron resolve. If I told her now, she wouldn't love me. She would love the ticket. She wouldn't apologize because she was sorry, she would apologize because she wanted a cut. She had explicitly told me to split it with her. 50-50. I looked at Catherine's photo again. I remembered how we scrimped to buy Emily her first car. How I wore the same boots for 5 years so she could have braces. I had given her everything I had. And it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. I am done, Kate, I said to the picture. I am done being the doormat. I turned off the phone. I held the power button down until the screen went black. I didn't want them to reach me. I didn't want to hear their voices. I took the ticket and walked to the old family Bible on the bookshelf. I opened it to the page recording our marriage. I placed the ticket there, pressing the heavy pages down. It was safe. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my armchair watching the shadows lengthen and retreat across the floorboards. I formulated a plan. I wasn't going to be the foolish lottery winner who hands out cash until he is broke again. I was going to be strategic. I was going to build a fortress around this fortune just like I built this house. As soon as the sun crested the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and reds, I showered and shaved. I put on my Sunday suit. It was a charcoal gray wool, a bit tight in the shoulders now, but still respectable. I polished my shoes. I drove into the city, avoiding the highway, taking the back roads I had driven my whole life. I pulled up to a glass and steel building downtown. The sign on the door read Sterling and Associates. Vera Sterling was a shark in a silk blouse. She had handled Catherine's estate, which wasn't much, but she had treated us with more respect than anyone else in that terrible time. I trusted her because she was ruthless, but she was honest. I didn't have an appointment, but when the receptionist saw my face, she buzzed me back. Vera was standing by her window looking out at the city. She turned when I entered. "Joe Bennett," she said, her voice raspy from years of chain smoking. "To what do I owe the pleasure? You look like you are going to a funeral or a wedding." "Neither," I said, closing the door behind me. I locked it. Vera raised an eyebrow but didn't say a word. She sat down behind her massive mahogany desk and gestured for me to do the same. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the ticket. I placed it in the center of her desk. "Check that for me, Vera," I said. "Tell me I am not crazy." She picked it up. She put on her glasses. She pulled up the lottery numbers on her computer screen. She checked. She checked again. Then she took off her glasses and looked at me. "Joe," she said softly, "this is a Powerball jackpot. The cash option is somewhere around 60 million after taxes." 95 million total, I corrected. "Right," she said. "Joe, why are you here? You should be at the Lottery Commission popping champagne." I told her. I told her about the Father's Day lunch. I told her about the cruise for Preston and the $2 ticket for me. I showed her the text message from Emily. I let her read the words that had severed the last cord binding me to my daughter's expectations. Vera's face hardened. She handed the phone back to me with a look of disgust. "So they think you are trash," she said, "and they think you are broke." "Exactly," I said, "and I want to keep it that way." Vera nodded, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. You want asset protection. You want anonymity. I want a ghost to own this money, I said. I don't want Joe Bennett's name anywhere near the headlines. And I don't want Emily or Liam to know a damn thing until I am ready to teach them a lesson. We can do that, Vera said, pulling a legal pad toward her. In this state, you can claim a lottery prize through a limited liability company or a trust. Your name stays off the public record. We will set up a blind trust. You will be the sole beneficiary, but I will be the trustee on paper. To the world, the winner will be… what do you want to call it? I thought about the trees in my backyard. The ones Emily wanted me to cut down to increase the property value. The Silent Oak Trust, I said. Vera wrote it down. The pen scratched loudly against the paper, sealing my secret. Done, she said. We will file the paperwork today. We will claim the prize tomorrow. By Friday, the money will be in an offshore account that even the IRS has to squint to see clearly. And Joe, she looked me dead in the eye. If you do this, there is no going back. You are going to have to lie to them. You are going to have to watch them treat you like dirt and not say a word. Can you do that? I thought about the burned burger. I thought about the plastic table. I thought about the text message. I stood up and buttoned my jacket. Vera, I said, I have been eating dirt for 40 years. I can do it for a few more weeks. Just make sure the paperwork is bulletproof. She extended her hand. It is going to be a fortress, Joe. I shook her hand. The deal was struck. I walked out of that office a multimillionaire, but as I stepped out onto the sidewalk and into the morning sun, I hunched my shoulders and shuffled my feet. I got back into my old truck. It was time to go home and wait for the wolves to come knocking. And I knew they would come. They always came when they smelled blood, even if they didn't know how much blood there really was. 2 days passed in a strange quiet. I spent them sitting on my porch, watching the sun move across the sky, holding the secret of $95 million in my chest like a second heart, beating slow and steady. I knew they would come. Greed has a distinct smell, and my daughter had developed a nose for it. On Tuesday afternoon, the gravel in my driveway crunched under the tires of Emily's leased Range Rover. I didn't get up. I just watched them from the rocking chair. They got out of the car differently this time. There was no strutting, no checking phones. They walked with a hurried, performative urgency. Emily was carrying a wicker basket wrapped in cellophane. I waited until they were on the porch steps before I spoke. The door is open, I said, not moving from my chair. Dad. Emily gasped as if she hadn't seen me sitting right there. You startled me. She leaned in to hug me. Her perfume was expensive, cloying something that smelled like vanilla and chemicals. I didn't hug back. I just let her arms drape over my shoulders for a second before she pulled away. We brought you something, Liam said, gesturing to the basket Emily had set on the small porch table. Just a little health kick. We know you don't eat enough fresh fruit. I looked at the basket. Through the shiny plastic, I could see the truth. The bananas were spotted brown, the oranges looked dry and hard, and there was a single pineapple that had clearly seen better days. I knew this basket. It was the clearance arrangement from the grocery store downtown, the one they put near the register when the produce is about to turn. $5, marked down from 20. Thank you, I said, my voice flat. Can we go inside, Dad? Emily asked, shifting her weight. It is hot out here, and we need to talk to you about something important. I stood up, my knees cracking loudly in the silence. Lead the way. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had eaten breakfast alone for 10 years. Emily sat in Catherine's chair. I felt a twitch of irritation, but I pushed it down. I had to play the part, so I said, folding my hands on the scratched wood. What brings you two all the way out here on a Tuesday? Don't you have jobs? Liam cleared his throat, adjusting his tie. He looked nervous, sweating slightly despite the cool air of the house. Actually, Joe, that is sort of why we are here, he said. We have a situation. A business opportunity really, but it is time sensitive. Emily reached across the table and took my hand. Her palms were damp. Dad, we are in a bit of a bind, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Liam's logistics company. Well, the market has shifted. We have some short-term liquidity issues. But we have a chance to invest in this new tech startup. It is guaranteed to triple our money in 6 months. We just need the capital to get in on the ground floor. I looked at her. I looked at the daughter I had carried on my shoulders, who I had taught to ride a bike. She was lying to my face effortlessly. How much capital, I asked. $400,000, Liam said quickly. I raised an eyebrow. 400,000. That is a lot of money. I don't have that kind of cash in the mattress, kids. You know that. We know, Dad, Emily said, squeezing my hand tighter. But you have this house. You have the land. I looked around the kitchen. The cabinets I had built myself. The height chart carved into the doorframe. You want me to sell my house? It is for your own good, Dad, she said, the words rushing out now. Look at this place. It is falling apart. The roof leaks, the plumbing is ancient. It is a money pit. We found a buyer, a developer friend of Preston's. He is willing to pay cash, $400,000. It is a generous offer, Dad, considering the condition of the place. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing or screaming. Just yesterday, Vera had shown me the county records. The Highway Commission had just approved an expansion project that ran right past my property line. This land wasn't a residential lot anymore. It was prime commercial real estate. It was currently appraised at $2 million minimum. 400,000, I repeated slowly. That seems low. I heard land around here was going up. Emily shook her head, her expression one of pity. That is just rumors, Dad. Nobody wants to live out here. It is a flood zone practically. Preston's friend is doing us a favor, taking it off your hands. He is going to have to bulldoze it anyway. Bulldoze it. My life, my memories, Catherine's garden bulldozed for a favor. And where would I go, I asked, playing the scared old man. If I sell the house, where do I live? Oh, Dad. That is the beautiful part, Emily said, smiling a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You come live with us. We have the guest suite in the basement. It is private. It has its own bathroom. We will take care of you. We will be a real family again. You won't be lonely anymore. The guest suite. I had seen it. It was a glorified storage room with no windows, damp and smelling of mildew. They wanted to take my $2 million home, hand me $400,000, steal that for their fake investment, and stick me in a dungeon. I pulled my hand away from hers. It felt dirty. I don't know, I said, scratching my chin. That is a big change. And I am confused. Confused about what Joe, Liam asked, tapping his fingers on the table impatiently. Well, I said, leaning back. On Sunday, you gave Preston a $20,000 cruise. You leased that new Range Rover outside. You live in that big house. If you are so rich, why do you need my house money? Why are you asking a poor old man for help? The air in the room changed instantly. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Emily's smile vanished, replaced by a look of sharp annoyance. That was different, Dad, she snapped. The cruise was a gift. It was about appearance. You have to spend money to make money. You wouldn't understand how our world works. I wouldn't understand. I ran a business for 40 years. I understood that you don't spend what you don't have. I understand that $20,000 is a lot of money to burn when you are asking your father to sell his roof. I said, my voice hardening just a fraction. Liam sighed loudly, rolling his eyes. Look, Joe, this isn't about the cruise. This is about survival. We need this infusion of cash to save the business. If we don't get it, we could lose everything. Do you want to see your daughter on the street? So now it was blackmail. I thought you said it was an investment opportunity, I said. Now it is saving the business. Which is it, Liam? It is both, Emily yelled, slamming her hand down on the table. The fruit basket rattled. Why do you have to make everything so difficult, Dad? Why do you have to question everything? We are trying to help you. We are trying to get you out of this rotting shack before it collapses on top of you. She stood up, her face flushed with anger. You are so selfish, she hissed. You have always been selfish. Holding on to this land, holding on to Mom's memory like it is some holy relic. Mom is dead, Dad. This house is dead, and you are just sitting here waiting to die in it. We are offering you a life. We are offering you a home with us. And you sit there counting pennies and judging us. I looked up at her. This was it. The mask was off. This was what she really thought of me. A stubborn, selfish old relic blocking her access to easy money. I stood up slowly. I matched her gaze. I am not selling the house, I said quietly. Not for $400,000. Not to Preston's friend. Emily stared at me, her mouth open in shock. She wasn't used to me saying no. I had always given in. I had always signed the checks. You are making a mistake, Joe, Liam said, standing up to loom over me. A big mistake. We are the only ones looking out for you. I walked to the door and opened it. I think you should leave, I said. Take your fruit with you. Emily grabbed her purse, her hands shaking with rage. Fine, she spat. Stay here. Rot here. But don't call us when the roof caves in. Don't call us when you are sick and alone. We tried to help you, remember that. She stormed out past me, not even looking at my face. Liam followed, pausing only to glare at me one last time. You are going to regret this, old man, he muttered. I watched them get into their expensive leased car and peel out of the driveway, kicking up gravel and dust. I stood on the porch until the dust settled. I walked back inside. The house was quiet again. But it wasn't a peaceful quiet anymore. It was the quiet of a battlefield before the next charge. I looked at the fruit basket on the table. I picked it up and walked to the back door. I opened it and dumped the rotting fruit into the compost pile where it belonged. They wanted a war. They wanted to strip me bare and leave me in a basement. They had no idea that the man they just called selfish and old was holding a nuclear code in his pocket. I went to the phone and dialed Vera's number. It is Joe, I said when she answered. Pull the trigger on the LLC, and Vera, get me a list of every debt they have. Every credit card, every car loan, every mortgage. I want to own it all. I hung up. I sat down in my chair. I wasn't shaking anymore. I was stone. They wanted to play games with money. Fine. I was about to show them what real money could do. The next day, Liam showed up at my door alone. He didn't have a fruit basket this time. He didn't even have a smile. He banged on the screen door, his face slick with sweat, his eyes darting around the property as if he were looking for invisible enemies. I opened the door slowly. I really need to use your bathroom, Joe, he said, pushing past me before I could even invite him in. I have been driving around all morning looking at properties, and the coffee went right through me. He didn't wait for an answer. He marched down the hallway toward the guest bathroom, the one with the thin, hollow core door that didn't quite fit the frame anymore because the house had settled over the years. I watched him go. He didn't look like a successful businessman. He looked like a cornered rat. I walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water, but then I heard it. Liam's voice. It was loud, echoing down the hallway. He had put his phone on speaker, probably setting it on the sink while he relieved himself. He thought I was deaf or senile, or maybe he just didn't care. He thought he owned the place already. I moved closer. My socks were silent on the hardwood floor. I stood just outside the bathroom door, holding my breath. Yeah, I am at the old man's house now, Liam said. It smells like sawdust and old people. God, I hate this place. I heard a second voice crackle over the speaker. It was a woman's voice, raspy and professional, like someone who smoked too much and cared too little. "Look, Mr. Bennett, I found a placement," she said. "It is called The Willows. It is state-funded. Bottom of the barrel, honestly. We usually send the indigent cases there. 4 to a room, no private baths, and the staff ratio is... let's just say it is legal, but barely." "Perfect," Liam said. I heard the sound of a zipper. "How much?" "If you sign over his pension and Social Security checks, it covers the base cost," the woman replied. "You won't have to pay a dime out of pocket. But I have to warn you, it is grim. They sedate the difficult ones. He won't last long in there." "That is the point." Liam laughed a cold, humorless bark. "We don't need him to last long. We just need him out of the way." My hand gripped the doorframe so hard, a splinter dug into my palm. They weren't looking for a guest suite. They weren't looking for a nice retirement community. They were looking for a warehouse to dump me in to die so they could keep my monthly checks. Then a third voice joined the call. It was unmistakable. Booming, arrogant, and slightly slurred. "Preston." "Stop wasting time on the details," Liam Preston shouted. "Just get the signature on the house deed. I have the buyers from the conglomerate breathing down my neck. They are offering $2.2 million for that land if we can bundle it with the adjacent lots. $2.2 million. They had offered me $400,000. I need this deal, Liam." Preston continued, his voice losing its bluster and taking on a frantic edge. "You don't understand. I am leveraged to the hilt on the downtown project. If we don't flip this land by the end of the month, the bank is going to seize my assets. I will be ruined. And if I go down, you and Emily go down with me." The truth hit me like a physical blow. Preston wasn't the wealthy benefactor. He was a fraud. He was broke, drowning in debt, and using my daughter and her husband as life rafts. He was brokering the sale of my home not to help them, but to save himself from bankruptcy. And Emily, my poor foolish daughter, was trying to impress a man who was actively robbing her father. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hands were steady with the cold precision soul of a man who knows exactly where to drive the nail. I opened the voice recorder app. I held it up to the crack in the door. "Don't worry, Preston," Liam said, his voice trembling slightly. "I will get him to sign. He is old and he is scared. We will tell him the nursing home is a resort. Once he signs the power of attorney, we can dump him at the Willows and he won't be able to do a thing about it. Who is going to believe a senile old man over his successful family?" "Exactly," Preston growled. "Get it done. Tossing that old man in a hole is a kindness compared to what will happen to us if this deal falls through." The call ended with a beep. I heard the tap water running. Liam was washing his hands of me. I stepped back, retreating silently into the kitchen. I sat down at the table and placed my phone face down. The recording was saved. Liam walked into the kitchen a moment later, drying his hands on his pants. He looked at me, his face composing itself into a mask of fake concern. "Better," he said. "Sorry about that, Joe. So have you thought about our offer? Emily is really worried about you. She was crying all night thinking about you alone in this big house." I looked at him. I looked at the man my daughter had married. I saw the sweat on his upper lip, the tremor in his hands, the cheap suit that didn't quite fit. He wasn't a monster. He was something worse. He was weak. He was a weak man willing to destroy a strong one just to survive another day of his own lies. I thought about it. I said, my voice calm, rasping slightly like dry leaves, and Liam asked, hope flaring in his eyes. "I think I need a few days," I said, "to say goodbye to the place." "It is hard, Liam, leaving your life behind." Liam nodded vigorously, pretending to understand emotions he clearly didn't possess. "Of course, Joe. Take a few days. But remember, the developer needs an answer by Friday. We don't want to lose this opportunity. He patted my shoulder. It felt like being touched by a snake. I will call you, I said. He left, looking relieved, thinking he had won, thinking the old man was breaking. He got into his car and drove away, unaware that he had just handed me the ammunition to bury him. I sat there for a long time, listening to the silence of my house. The pain I had felt on Sunday, the heartbreak of a father rejected by his child, was gone. It had evaporated in the heat of that hallway. What was left was something harder, something colder. They wanted to put me in a place where I would be sedated and forgotten. They wanted to steal my pension. They wanted to sell my wife's garden to save a con man. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the oak trees. No, I whispered. I picked up my phone and played the recording back. I listened to them plotting my demise. I listened to Preston admitting his bankruptcy. I wasn't going to just survive this. I was going to teach them a lesson. Not a lecture, not a scolding. I was going to teach them a lesson in power. I called Vera. It is Joe, I said. I have a recording. You need to hear it. And Vera, I want to buy the debt. Which debt? She asked. Preston's, I said. Find out who he owes. Find out which bank holds his loans. I want to buy them. I want to be the one breathing down his neck. And what about Emily and Liam? She asked. Them too, I said. Every credit card, every car note. If it is for sale, I want it. I hung up. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the floor. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the bank. And the bank was about to call in the loan. The campaign had begun. I called Emily on Friday morning. My hand was steady as I held the phone, but I forced a tremor into my voice. I let a little panic seep in, the kind of high-pitched frailty that makes younger people roll their eyes and check their watches. Emily, I said, breathing heavily into the receiver. I have been thinking. You are right. I am too old for this house. The roof, it sounds like it is going to fall in when the wind blows. I am scared here. There was a pause on the other end, and then I heard her exhale a breath she must have been holding for days. Finally, Dad, she said, her voice dropping the anger and adopting that sickeningly sweet tone she reserved for children and idiots. I am so glad you are being reasonable. We just want you safe. I wiped a speck of dust from the kitchen table. I want to sell, I said, but I need to be sure. About the room, the guest room. It is nice, right? It has a window. I need a window, Emily. Of course it has a window, Dad, she lied effortlessly. It is beautiful. You will love it. We will come over right now to get the paperwork started. I hung up. Then I pulled a document out of my back pocket. Vera had drafted it the day before. It looked like a standard simple care agreement, the kind you download off the internet. But Vera Sterling didn't do standard. Buried in the dense legalese of paragraph 4 and subsection 9 were clauses that would bind Emily and Liam to me financially in ways they couldn't imagine. It stated that in exchange for the proceeds of my home, they accepted full personal liability for my care at a rate of $10,000 a month, adjusting for inflation, and that any default on this care would result in an immediate lien on all their current and future assets, including real estate and business holdings. It also contained a confession of judgment for the loans I had secretly bought up. It was a bear trap disguised as a safety blanket. They arrived within the hour. Liam was practically vibrating with excitement. He was already counting the commission on the land deal. Emily walked in looking around my living room, not with nostalgia, but with the appraising eye of an auctioneer. I sat at the table, my shoulders hunched, playing the part of the defeated old man. I found this paper, I said, sliding the document across the wood. The lady at the senior center said I should have you sign it. Just so I know you won't leave me on the street. Liam snatched the paper up. He barely glanced at it. He saw the words, care agreement and home sale authorization, and his eyes lit up. Sure, Joe, sure, he said, pulling a pen from his jacket pocket. Anything to make you feel comfortable. We are family. We take care of each other. He signed it with a flourish. He didn't read a single line of the fine print. He handed the pen to Emily. Sign it, Em, he said. So your dad feels better. Emily scribbled her signature without even sitting down. There, she said, pushing the paper back to me. Happy now, Dad. We are officially your caretakers. Now where is the deed to the house? I took the contract and folded it carefully, placing it in my pocket, next to my heart. It felt heavier than paper. It felt like justice. The deed is in the safe, I said, pointing to the metal box in the corner. But I need time. I need time to pack. 40 years, Emily. I have 40 years of things here. We don't have time, Dad. Emily snapped, her patience already fraying. The developer needs the property cleared by next week. We can't wait for you to go through every old newspaper and rusty nail. She looked around the room, her eyes landed on the mantel, then the bookshelves, then the corner where my grandfather's clock stood. It was a beautiful piece, mahogany and brass, brought over from Germany in the 1920s. It had ticked the seconds of my entire life. It had chimed when I brought Catherine home as a bride, and it had chimed when I carried her out in a casket. We need to start clearing this junk out today, she announced. Liam, go get the boxes from the car. I called a guy, he buys estate lots. He is coming in an hour to take the bulk of this trash. Trash. She was calling my life trash. But Emily, I stammered, standing up shakily. That clock. Your grandfather loved that clock. And the photos. We will keep the photos, Dad, she said, waving her hand dismissively. But the furniture is rotted. The clock probably doesn't even work. We need the space clear. She started moving through the room, grabbing knickknacks off the shelves and tossing them into a garbage bag she had pulled from her purse. I watched her throw away a ceramic bluebird Catherine had painted. I watched her toss my Navy service medals into the trash heap without a second glance. My heart hammered against my ribs, a hot, angry rhythm. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to scream that I could buy and sell her 1,000 times over. But I stayed silent. I had to. The trap wasn't sprung yet. An hour later, a van pulled up. A man in greasy coveralls got out. He looked like a vulture who had smelled a carcass. What do you got, lady? He asked, chewing on a toothpick. Everything in the living room, Emily said, gesturing widely. $500 for the lot. Take it all. I gasped. $500. The clock alone was worth $5,000. The antique rug she was standing on was worth $3,000. Make it $400, the man grunted, kicking the leg of my armchair. This stuff is heavy. Fine, Emily said. Just get it out of here. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching them. They were looting me. My own daughter was stripping my home bare right in front of my eyes, selling my history for pocket change. The man walked over to the grandfather clock. He tilted it back carelessly, the heavy brass weights clanging inside. Careful, I whispered. Quiet, Dad, Emily hissed. Let him work. The man dragged the clock across the hardwood floor, scratching the finish I had polished for decades. He hauled it out the door and shoved it into the back of his van next to a pile of dirty mattresses. I felt a tear leak out of my eye. It wasn't acting. It was real pain. That clock was the heartbeat of this house. As soon as the man drove away, Emily turned to me, smiling triumphantly, holding $400 in cash. See, Dad, she said, stuffing the money into her bra. That is $400 we didn't have this morning. We are making progress. I excused myself, muttering about needing to use the restroom. I went into the back bedroom and locked the door. I pulled out my burner phone, the one Vera had given me for secure calls. I dialed a number. It is Joe, I said, my voice shaking. He just left. A white van license plate ending in 49. He has the clock. Get it back. I waited. 2 minutes later, the phone buzzed. It was a text from Gus, an old friend from my construction days who I had hired to help me. Got him the text read. Stopped him at the gas station. Offered him $5,000 cash. The clock is in my truck, not a scratch on it. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I had paid $5,000 to buy back my own clock. It was insane. It was necessary. I walked back out into the living room. It looked empty, like a mouth with missing teeth. The rug was gone. The clock was gone. My chair was gone. Emily was in the kitchen, opening my cupboards. "My God, Dad," she said, wrinkling her nose. "Do you ever throw anything away? Look at these jars. They are ancient." She was sweeping Catherine's canning jars into the trash. Jars of peach preserves that Catherine had made the summer before she died. They were the last things she had touched. I walked over and put my hand on her arm. "Please, Emily," I said softly. "Not those. Your mother made those." Emily looked at the jar in her hand. The label was faded, written in Catherine's looping script. Summer Peaches, 2014. "Dad, Mom is gone," she said, her voice void of sentiment. "This is just sugar and mold. Let it go." She dropped the jar into the trash can. The glass shattered. The sound was like a gunshot in the empty kitchen. The smell of sweet peaches and rot filled the air. I looked at the broken glass. I looked at the syrup bleeding onto the garbage bag. "Okay," I said. "You are right. Let it go." I wasn't talking about the peaches. I was talking about her. In that moment, watching the last remnant of her mother's love dripping into the trash, I let go of my daughter. I cut the cord. The Emily I loved, the little girl in pigtails, was gone. This woman standing in front of me was a stranger, a parasite in designer shoes. "We are done for today," Emily said, wiping her hands. "We will come back tomorrow for the rest. Make sure you pack your clothes, Dad. We want you out by Friday." They left. I stood in the empty living room. The sun was going down, casting long shadows across the bare floor. It was quiet. The clock wasn't ticking anymore. But I wasn't sad. I felt a cold, hard clarity. They had signed the paper. They had taken the bait. They thought they were stripping a carcass, but they were just clearing the deck for the captain. I walked to the trash can and carefully picked out the shards of glass from the gun. I couldn't save the peaches, but I saved the label. I wiped it off and put it in my pocket. Then I went to the safe. I took out the deed. I looked at it. It was just paper. The house wasn't the wood and the brick. The house was the love that built it. And that love was safe inside me, protected by $95 million and a plan that was about to snap shut like a steel trap. I sat on the floor where my chair used to be. I closed my eyes, and I waited for tomorrow. On Saturday evening, Emily picked me up in her leased Range Rover. I was waiting on the porch wearing my charcoal suit. It was the same suit I had worn to bury Catherine 5 years ago, and it smelled faintly of cedar and old grief. I had brushed it off, but the fabric was shiny at the elbows, and the cut was 20 years out of style. Emily rolled down the window as she pulled up. She didn't even put the car in park. "Get in, Dad," she hissed. "We are already late. And God, please tell me you didn't wear that tie. It looks like something a clown would wear to a funeral." I looked down at the tie. It was a simple navy stripe. Catherine had bought it for me. "It is the only one I have," I said, climbing into the passenger seat. Emily gunned the engine before I had even clicked my seatbelt. The leather seats squeaked under me. "Just try to blend in tonight," she said, keeping her eyes on the road. "Preston went to a lot of trouble to organize this gala. It is for the Children's Future Foundation. Very high profile. The mayor might be there. Just don't talk to anyone, okay? Just smile, nod, and sign the papers when we tell you to." I looked out the window, watching the trees blur by. She thought she was taking a confused old man to a slaughter. She didn't know she was driving a shark into a pool of minnows. The gala was held at the Grandview Hotel downtown. It was a room full of people pretending to be important. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto tables covered in satin. There was an ice sculpture of a swan melting slowly in the center of the buffet. The air smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. Preston was holding court near the bar. He was wearing a white tuxedo, looking for all the world like a game show host gone to seed. When he saw us, he spread his arms wide, his face flushing with a mixture of scotch and performative delight. "There he is," he boomed, his voice cutting through the chatter. "The man of the hour, Joseph Bennett." He walked over and clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. He squeezed hard enough to bruise. "Glad you could make it," Joe Preston said, leaning in close. His breath smelled of alcohol and breath mints. "You look rustic, very authentic." He turned to the group of people standing nearby. A few of them were holding champagne flutes, looking at me with that polite disdain rich people reserve for the help. "Everyone," Preston announced, "this is Emily's father, a true salt-of-the-earth type. He is finally downsizing today, selling that old money pit of his so he can retire with dignity. We are just happy to help him transition. You know how it is. Sometimes the older generation becomes a burden, and it is up to us to shoulder the load." A burden. He said it loud enough for half the room to hear. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, but I kept my face blank. I let my shoulders slump. I let my hands tremble slightly. "You are very kind, Preston," I mumbled, looking at the floor. Emily stepped forward, looping her arm through mine. Her grip was tight like a vice. "Let's get you a drink, Dad," she said, steering me away. "And then we can handle the paperwork. The notary is waiting in the VIP lounge." She dragged me through the crowd. I saw people whispering behind their hands. I saw the pity in their eyes. They saw a daughter taking care of her senile father. They didn't see the wolf leading the sheep. We were passing a table near the front when a man stood up abruptly. He was tall, with silver hair and a suit that actually fit. It was Mr. Henderson, the president of First City Bank, the same bank where Vera Sterling had deposited my $95 million check 3 days ago. Henderson looked at me. His eyes went wide. He dropped his napkin on the table. "Mr. Bennett," he said, his voice full of genuine shock and respect. "I didn't expect to see you here." He took a step toward me, extending his hand. He was about to greet me as his most important client. He was about to blow my cover. I locked eyes with him. I gave him the slightest shake of my head. I put a finger to my lips just for a second. Henderson froze. He was a smart man. He knew how the game was played. He saw Emily gripping my arm. He saw Preston watching from the bar. He understood instantly that silence was what I needed. He cleared his throat and lowered his hand, changing his posture from deference to polite distance. "Good to see you looking well, Joseph," he said smoothly. "Enjoy the evening." "Who was that?" Emily asked, pulling me along. "Just a man I did some work for years ago," I lied. "Fixed his roof, I think." Emily scoffed. "Probably surprised you are still upright." "Come on." We entered the VIP lounge. It was a smaller, quieter room off the main hall. There was a notary sitting at a glass table, a young woman who looked bored and tired. On the table sat a stack of documents. "Here we are," Preston said, appearing behind us. He had followed us in like a bad smell. "Let's get this done so we can celebrate." He pushed me into a chair. Emily sat next to me. Liam was standing by the door, guarding it as if I might try to run. The notary pushed the papers toward me. "Sign here, here, and here," she said, pointing to the yellow, sticky tabs. I put on my reading glasses. I made a show of wiping them slowly. I peered at the papers. "This is for the house, right?" I asked, my voice quavering. "To sell the house to your friend." "Yes, Dad," Emily said, tapping her foot. "We went over this. Just sign." I looked at the document. The header read, Transfer of Asset Control and Management Authorization. It looked exactly like a standard deed transfer. The font was the same. The legal jargon was dense. But this wasn't the document they thought it was. Vera Sterling had pulled a maneuver that was nothing short of brilliant. She had contacted Preston's lawyer, a paralegal named Gary, who was just as crooked as Preston, and swapped the files digitally in the cloud server they were using for the transaction. Gary hadn't checked the version history. He had just printed what was in the folder. This document didn't sell the house to Preston's developer friend. It transferred the management of the property to the Silent Oak Charitable Trust, a legal entity controlled by me. It essentially donated the usage rights of the land to a nonprofit for tax purposes while retaining ownership. It meant the land couldn't be sold, developed, or leveraged for a loan for 99 years. It was a poison pill wrapped in a legal bow. I picked up the pen. My hand shook. "Are you sure this is the right thing, Emily?" I asked, looking at her one last time. "Are you sure you want me to do this?" She didn't look at me. She was looking at the diamond bracelet on her wrist. "Just sign it, Dad," she snapped. "Stop being dramatic." I looked at Preston. He was grinning, swirling his drink. "Do it, Joe," he said. "Be a hero for once." I put the pen to the paper. I signed my name. Joseph William Bennett. I signed it on all 3 lines. "There," I said, putting the pen down. "It is done." Emily snatched the papers off the table before the ink was even dry. She hugged the folder to her chest, as if it were a newborn baby. Finally, she breathed. She looked at Preston and nodded. Preston let out a whoop of joy. "Drinks are on me, everyone," he shouted to the empty room. "We just closed the deal of the century." Liam came over and clapped me on the back. "Good job, Joe," he said. "You won't regret this. We will start moving your stuff out tomorrow." The notary stamped the papers and packed up her bag. She didn't care. She got her $50. I stood up. My knees didn't hurt anymore. I felt light. "I think I will go home now," I said. "I am tired." Emily didn't even offer to drive me. She was too busy looking at the papers, showing them to Liam. "Call an Uber, Dad," she said distractedly. "Here, takes $20. She pulled a $20 bill from her purse and held it out to me. I looked at the bill. It was the final insult. But I took it. I took it because I wanted to frame it later. "I will find my own way," I said. I walked out of the VIP lounge. I walked through the ballroom, past the melting swan, past the people pretending to be rich. I saw Mr. Henderson again near the exit. He gave me a subtle nod. I winked at him. I walked out into the cool night air. I didn't call an Uber. I had my truck parked around the corner. As I drove away, I looked back at the hotel. Emily and Liam were in there celebrating. They thought they had just secured $2 million. They thought they had won. They were clinking glasses and dreaming of spending my money. They had no idea that they were holding a worthless piece of paper. They had no idea that by tomorrow morning, when they tried to present that document to the bank for their bridge loan, the entire house of cards was going to come crashing down. I turned on the radio. An old country song was playing. I turned it up loud. I tapped my fingers on the steering wheel. Happy Father's Day. "Joe," I said to myself. Happy Father's Day indeed. The Sunday sun was shining, but for my daughter and her husband, the storm was just beginning. I was sitting in my kitchen enjoying a cup of coffee that tasted like victory. I wasn't there at the restaurant, but I knew exactly what was happening. I had the script in my head because I had written it. They were at Le Jardin. It is the kind of place where they shave truffles onto your eggs and charge you $50 for the privilege. Vera told me Liam had made a reservation weeks ago, assuming he would be flush with cash by now. They were celebrating the sale of my house. They were celebrating the end of my independence. They were probably raising a glass of Dom Perignon to the senile old fool who had signed away his life on a Saturday night. I checked my watch. It was 11:30. The check would be arriving right about now. My phone rang. It was Emily. I let it ring twice. I took a sip of coffee. I wanted her to sweat. I wanted her to feel that rising tide of panic that comes when the safety net disappears. I picked up on the third ring. "Hello?" I said, my voice raspy and slow, playing the part to the bitter end. "Dad." Emily shrieked. Her voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. There was no fake sweetness today. No honey. Just pure, unadulterated panic. "Dad, what did you do?" I frowned at the phone. "I am drinking coffee, Emily," I said. "What is the matter? You sound upset." "Upset?" she screamed. "I am not upset, Dad. I am mortified. We are at Le Jardin. We just tried to pay the bill. It is $600, Dad. $600 for brunch." And the card declined. I leaned back in my chair. "Oh dear," I said. "That happens sometimes. Maybe the chip is dirty. Did you try wiping it on your shirt?" "Don't play games with me," she hissed. "We tried 3 cards. Liam tried his business card. He tried the personal Amex. He even tried the emergency visa. They are all dead, Dad. Ed. Every single one." And when Liam called the bank, do you know what they told him? I knew exactly what they told him. I had spent an hour on the phone with Mr. Henderson yesterday morning, right after the gala. As a client with $95 million in liquid assets sitting in his vault, Mr. Henderson was very eager to ensure my financial security. When I casually mentioned that my son-in-law might have used my property as collateral for loans without my full consent, Henderson's team went into overdrive. They audited Liam's files, and what they found was fraud. Plain and simple. Liam had listed my 4 acres as an asset he controlled on 3 different loan applications claiming he had power of attorney. A power of attorney that didn't exist. They told him his accounts are frozen. Emily shouted, her voice cracking. "Frozen for a security audit. They said there is a flag on the collateral. They said the asset he listed, your house, Dad. They said there is a problem with the title. What did you do at that notary last night?" I took a slow breath. I looked at the sunlight streaming through the window. "I signed the papers, Emily," I said, calm as a millpond. "Just like you asked. I signed the transfer of asset control. You were there. You saw me do it." "Then why is the bank saying the property is in a trust?" she yelled. "The manager just came to our table. In front of everyone, Dad. He said Liam is under investigation for falsifying loan documents. He cut up the cards right at the table. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" I closed my eyes and imagined the scene. The waiter with the scissors, the whispers from the other tables, Liam sweating through his expensive shirt. It was beautiful. "It sounds like a banking error," I said. "You know how computers are." "But Emily, why would Liam list my house on his loans? That is my house." "Because it was supposed to be ours," she screamed, forgetting herself completely. "It was supposed to be the collateral for the bridge loan to pay Preston back. We spent that money, Dad. We spent it before we had it. And now... God. Dad, the waiter is looking at us. They think we are trying to dine and dash. You have to help us." "Help you?" I asked. "Yes," she demanded. "You have cash. I saw you take $20 from your wallet last night. You have savings. Bring money down here. Right now. Or give me your credit card number. The one you use for emergencies." I looked at the wallet on the table. Inside it sat the black Centurion card Vera had arranged for me, the one linked to the trust. It could buy the restaurant. It could buy the city block. "Emily," I said, my voice breaking with feigned helplessness. "You know I don't have a credit card. I cut them up years ago when your mother died. And cash? Honey, I have $40 in a coffee can. That is all I have until the pension check comes on the 1st. Liar, she spat. You have money hidden. Everyone knows old people hide money. Dig it up, Dad. We are hostages here. I am just a poor old man, Emily, I said, repeating the line Preston had used to mock me. A burden. Remember, I am just a broke old man with a rotting house. How can I help big, successful people like you? Dad, stop it. She was crying now. Please, they are going to call the police. Well, I said, I guess you will have to work it out. Maybe Preston can pay. He is rich, right? He got that cruise. Ask him. Preston isn't picking up his phone, she sobbed. He left early. Dad, please. I hung up. I didn't just hang up. I took the battery out of the old landline handset. I walked over to the window. I could see the world turning outside, unaffected by the disaster happening at Table 4 of Le Jardin. I wasn't there to see the finale, but Vera found out the details later. She has spies everywhere. Apparently, the restaurant manager wasn't moved by Emily's tears or Liam's threats of lawsuits. When it became clear that no money was coming and no cards were working, he gave them a choice: police or collateral. Liam didn't have anything of value. His watch was a fake, a knockoff Rolex he bought online to impress clients. The manager spotted it instantly. But Emily had a vintage Cartier watch. It was the one genuine nice thing she owned, a gift from Catherine for her graduation years ago. A gift I had worked overtime for 6 months to afford. And she had a diamond ring. Not her wedding ring that was a modest band, but the flashy 2-carat solitaire she had demanded for their 5th anniversary. She had to take them off. Vera told me she screamed the whole time. She had to hand over her mother's watch and her diamond ring to a sneering French manager just to cover the cost of eggs and champagne she couldn't even keep down. They left the restaurant stripped. No car keys because the valet wouldn't release the car without a tip and payment. No dignity. Walking down the street in their Sunday best, looking like refugees from a failed life. I sat in my kitchen and stroked the wood of the table. I missed Catherine's watch. It belonged in this family, not in a pawn shop safe or a restaurant safe. I made a mental note to send Gus down there tomorrow to buy it back. I would pay double what the bill was. I would get it back. But for now, I let them walk. I let them feel the pavement through the thin soles of their expensive shoes. I let them feel what it was like to have zero. I spent $5,000 of my lottery winnings on a private investigator named Cole. He was an ex-detective with a face like a roadmap of bad decisions and a cheap suit that smelled of stale tobacco, but Vera assured me he was the best at digging up dirt. We met on Monday morning in the back booth of a diner on the edge of town. I ordered coffee black. Cole ordered a plate of bacon and eggs and slapped a thick manila folder onto the table between us. You are not going to like this, Mr. Bennett, Cole said without preamble. Or maybe you will. Depends on how much you hate the guy. I opened the folder. The first thing I saw was a mugshot. It was younger and without the silver hair, but the eyes were the same. Preston. His real name is Preston Miller, but he has gone by 3 other aliases in the last decade, Cole said, chewing a piece of bacon. He declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy 5 years ago in Nevada. Wiped out $2 million in debt, mostly from investors he swindled in a timeshare scheme. Since then, he has been living on the float. The float, I asked. He opens lines of credit in other people's names, Cole explained. Usually women he dates or business partners he dazzles. He maxes them out, pays the minimums with other cards, and moves on before the house of cards collapses. He doesn't own that condo downtown. He is squatting in a foreclosure property that is tied up in probate court. And that charity gala on Saturday, it was a front, I guessed. Classic washing machine. Cole nodded. He collects donations for a non-existent foundation, pays himself a consulting fee that eats up 90% of the funds and disappears. The feds are already sniffing around, but he is slippery. I looked at the documents. Bank statements showing zero balances, lawsuits from 3 different states, restraining orders from angry creditors. Preston wasn't a tycoon. He was a parasite. He was a hollow man in a rented tuxedo. And here is the kicker, Cole said, pointing to a document near the back. He listed your son-in-law Liam as a partner on his latest shell company. If Preston goes down for fraud, Liam goes down with him. They are setting your daughter up to be the fall guy, Joe. They are going to leave her holding the bag for federal racketeering charges. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. I hated what Emily had become, but I didn't want her in federal prison. She was stupid and greedy, but she wasn't a criminal. She was being groomed. I paid Cole in cash. I took the folder. I drove home with the weight of the truth sitting on the passenger seat. I had a choice. I could let them burn. I could let the FBI kick down their door and watch the fireworks. It would be justice. But Catherine's voice was in my head whispering to save our little girl. I decided to give her one last chance. A lifeline. I made a copy of the dossier. I blacked out the source but left the court documents and the bankruptcy filings clearly visible. I put it in a plain brown envelope. I didn't write a note. The facts spoke for themselves. I paid a courier service to deliver it to Emily's house that afternoon, marked urgent. Then I waited. I sat on my porch as the sun began to dip below the tree line. The air was thick and humid, the kind of weather that promises a storm. Around 6:00, Emily's car screeched into my driveway. She didn't park. She slammed on the brakes, sending gravel spraying across the grass. She jumped out, leaving the door open. She was holding the brown envelope in her hand like a weapon. I stayed in my rocking chair. I didn't stand up. She stomped up the stairs, her face twisted in a mask of pure fury. She didn't look like my daughter. She looked like a stranger possessed. "You jealous old man," she screamed, throwing the envelope at me. It hit my chest and scattered papers across the porch floor. I looked at the papers fluttering in the breeze. The mugshot of Preston landed face up. "Is that what you are doing with your time now?" she yelled. "Forging documents, digging up dirt, making up lies because you can't stand to see us happy." I looked at her calm and steady. "Did you read it, Emily?" I asked. "Did you look at the bankruptcy filings? Did you see the dates? He is broke, honey. He is using you." "Lies," she shrieked. She kicked the papers, scattering them further. "Preston is a visionary. He has enemies, Dad. Powerful people who are jealous of his success, just like you. He told us about this. He told us people would try to tear him down. He told you that so you wouldn't believe the truth when it hit you in the face," I said. "Emily, he put Liam's name on a shell company. If the feds come, they come for Liam too." She laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "You are pathetic. You are just mad because he gave us a cruise and you gave us nothing. You are mad because he is the father figure Liam looks up to, and you are just a burden we have to manage." She bent down and started gathering the papers, ripping them into shreds. She tore the mugshot in half. She tore the bankruptcy decree into confetti. "He showed us his accounts," she said, panting with exertion. "He showed us his portfolio. Millions, Dad. He is going to make us rich. And you are trying to ruin it because you are small. You are a small, bitter man living in a small, bitter house." I watched her destroy the only thing that could save her. She was shredding the truth because the lie was too pretty to let go of. "I am trying to save you," I said quietly. "Save me," she scoffed, standing up and throwing the shredded paper into the yard. "I don't need saving from Preston. I need saving from you. I need saving from your negativity and your poverty." She reached into her purse. She pulled out a piece of paper. It wasn't a torn document. It was thick official paper with a legal letterhead. Preston was right, she said, her voice cold and final. We can't wait anymore. We can't let you drag us down. She walked over to my front door. She pulled a roll of packing tape from her bag. She slapped the paper against the wood of the door I had hand-carved 40 years ago and taped it there with violent, jerky movements. What is that? I asked, though I knew. It is a notice to vacate, she said, turning to face me. Since you signed the transfer of management on Saturday, the trust has the right to determine occupancy. Preston knows the trustees. He pulled some strings. The trust. The Silent Oak Trust. My trust. Preston didn't know the trustees. Preston was lying to her again, pretending to have power he didn't have. He probably printed that notice off his computer to scare me. You have 24 hours, she said. By tomorrow at sunset, you need to be gone. We have a room waiting for you at the Willows. A van will come to pick you up. If you are not ready, the sheriff will remove you for trespassing. Trespassing. In the house I built. Emily. I said, standing up. Look at me. Really look at me. Do you know what you are doing? I am taking out the trash, she said. She walked down the stairs, stepping over the shredded remains of the investigation. She got into her car and reversed out of the driveway without looking back. I stood on the porch. I looked at the paper taped to my door. Notice to vacate. Immediate effect. It was signed by a lawyer I knew didn't exist. I walked over and ripped the paper down. The tape pulled a sliver of paint off the door. I looked at the shredded papers in the yard. I looked at the empty driveway. She had made her choice. She had chosen the illusion over the father. She had chosen the con man over the carpenter. I took out my phone. I called Vera. It is time, I said. Time for what, Joe? She asked. Time for the reveal, I said. Send the car tomorrow, the big one, and tell the pilot to ready the jet. Where are you going? She asked. I am going on vacation, I said. But first I have a show to put on. I walked inside and started packing. Not the rags they expected me to bring to the nursing home. I packed the new suits I had bought in secret. I packed the Patek Philippe watch I had treated myself to yesterday. I packed the deed to the house which was still legally mine despite their fake paperwork. They wanted me out in 24 hours. Fine. I would leave. But I wasn't going to the Willows. And the way I left would burn an image into their minds that they would never forget. The sun was beginning to dip low in the sky, casting long orange shadows across the yard I had tended for 40 years. The deadline Emily had taped to my door was approaching. Sunset. That was when my tenancy in my own life was supposed to expire. I stood in the hallway in front of the full-length mirror Catherine had bought at an estate sale. The man looking back at me was not the Joe Bennett who fixed leaky faucets and drove a rusted Ford. This man was wearing a bespoke Brioni suit, charcoal gray, with a subtle pinstripe cut to fit my broad shoulders perfectly. The fabric felt like water against my skin, lighter and softer than anything I had ever worn. On my wrist, the Patek Philippe glinted under the hall light. It was heavy, solid gold, a machine of perfect precision, ticking away the final seconds of my old life. I adjusted my tie. It was silk deep blue, the color of the ocean I had sailed on decades ago. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like a man who owned the bank that foreclosed on the victim. Outside, the gravel crunched. It wasn't the smooth purr of a luxury car. It was the rattle and cough of a diesel engine that had seen better days. I walked to the window. A white van had pulled up behind Emily's Range Rover. On the side, in peeling blue letters, it read, "The Willows Senior Care Transport." It looked less like a shuttle and more like a dog catcher's truck. The windows were tinted dark, probably to keep the people inside from seeing where they were going, or maybe to keep the world from seeing the misery within. Emily and Liam got out of their car. Emily was wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a clipboard looking every inch the project manager of a demolition site. Liam was pacing nervously, kicking at the dirt, his eyes scanning the neighbors' houses, hoping no one was watching. I picked up my single bag. It wasn't a cardboard box or a trash bag full of clothes. It was a leather weekender bag, hand-stitched Italian leather, that cost more than Liam's first car. Inside were my papers, my passport, and the few photos of Catherine I couldn't bear to part with. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. The air was still humid and thick. The driver of the van, a large man with a stain on his uniform shirt, was already walking up the path, dragging a gurney behind him, as if he expected me to be an invalid. Emily looked up from her clipboard. She opened her mouth to bark an order, probably telling me to hurry up, but the words died in her throat. She stared. Liam stopped pacing and stared. The driver stopped dragging the gurney. I stood there buttoning my jacket with a calm, deliberate motion. The sunlight caught the gold of my watch. I saw Emily's eyes track the flash. "What are you wearing?" she asked, her voice shrill and confused. "Where did you get that suit?" I walked down the stairs one by one. My new shoes, polished to a mirror shine, made a solid, authoritative sound on the wood. "Hello, Emily," I said. "Liam, you are right on time." Emily took a step back, her eyes darting over my outfit, searching for a flaw, searching for the price tag she assumed I had forgotten to remove. Is that silk?" she stammered. "Dad, did you steal that? Did you break into a house? Where would you get money for a suit like that?" I stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I didn't answer her question. I looked at the van. "Is this my ride?" I asked, gesturing to the rusted heap. "Yes," Emily snapped, recovering her anger. "It is the transport for the Willows, and you are lucky to have it. Most people have to take the bus. Now get in. You can play dress-up when you get there, assuming they let you keep whatever that is." The driver stepped forward, rattling the gurney. "Need some help, Pops?" he grunted. I held up a hand. "No, thank you. I won't be needing the stretcher, and I won't be needing the van." Emily laughed, a harsh barking sound. "You don't have a choice, Dad. The eviction notice is effective immediately. You leave now or the sheriff escorts you. You are not staying in this house." "I know," I said calmly. "I am leaving, but I am not going to the Willows." Liam stepped in, trying to look imposing. "Joe, stop this. You signed the papers. You are indigent. You have nowhere else to go. The Willows is the only place that will take you without a deposit. Get in the van." I checked my watch. The movement was slow, deliberate. I saw Liam's eyes widen as he recognized the brand. He read GQ magazines. He knew what a Patek Philippe looked like, even if he could never afford one. "That is a fake," he whispered to Emily. "It has to be. He probably bought it at a pawn shop with the grocery money." I looked at them. My daughter and her husband standing in the dirt trying to bully an old man into a cage. "This van isn't going where I am going," I said. "I am going to the airport." "The airport," Emily scoffed. Her laugh was mean, sharp like broken glass. "And where exactly do you think you are going, Dad?" "Branson." "A bus tour to a casino. You have $40 to your name, remember. I am going on vacation," I said. "A long one." Emily shook her head, pointing a manicured finger at my chest. "You are going to a nursing home. You are delusional. This is exactly why we need to commit you. You think you are some jet setter because you bought a cheap suit and a fake watch. You are senile, Dad. You are traveling on what? That $2 lottery ticket." She threw her head back and laughed. It was a performance, a way to humiliate me one last time in front of Liam and the van driver. "Yeah, Dad," she mocked, wiping a tear of mirth from her eye. "Did you cash in your $2 ticket? Did you win $10? Is that your travel fund?" I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just looked past her shoulder down the long driveway toward the road. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through her laughter. It was a little more than $10. And then it appeared. It turned the corner slow and majestic like a shark gliding through shallow water. A black, stretched limousine. Not a rental town car, not an Uber. A true limousine, long and sleek with tinted windows so dark they looked like holes in reality. Flags fluttered on the front fenders. It crunched over the gravel, the sound deep and heavy. It pulled up right behind the nursing home van, dwarfing it, making the white transport look like a toy. Emily stopped laughing. Her mouth hung open. Liam turned around so fast he almost tripped. The van driver let out a low whistle. The limo stopped. The back door didn't just open. The driver got out first. He was wearing a uniform that put my suit to shame, cap, gloves, the works. He walked around the car with a military cadence. He ignored Emily. He ignored Liam. He walked straight up to me. "Mr. Bennett," he said, bowing slightly. I nodded. Good evening, Arthur. The jet is fueled and waiting at the private hangar, sir," the driver said loud enough for everyone to hear. "The pilot has filed the flight plan for the Mediterranean. Your champagne is chilled on board." Emily made a sound, like a dying engine. A small, choked gasp. "Jet," she whispered. "Private hangar." I handed my leather bag to Arthur. He took it as if it were filled with diamonds. "Careful with that," I said. "It has my ticket in it." I turned back to Emily. She looked like she had been slapped. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and terrified. She looked from the limo to me to the rusty van and back again. The reality she had constructed, the narrative of the poor, helpless father, was crumbling into dust right before her eyes. "Dad," she stammered, reaching out a hand but afraid to touch me. "Dad, what is happening? Who is paying for this? Is this Preston? Did Preston do this?" I laughed then. It was the first time I had laughed in days. "Preston," I said, shaking my head. "Honey, Preston couldn't afford the gas for this car." I stepped toward the open door of the limousine. The interior was cream leather and polished wood. It looked like a sanctuary. "But the ticket," she whispered. "The lottery ticket." "You said—" I stopped with one foot inside the car. I looked back at her. "I never said I didn't win, Emily," I said softly. You assumed I was a loser because that is all you ever saw when you looked at me. You assumed the ticket was worthless because I held it." Liam found his voice. It was high and reedy. "How much, Joe? How much did you win?" I looked at him. I looked at the sweat on his forehead. "Enough to buy this town, Liam," I said. "Enough to buy your debt. Enough to buy your future." I got into the car. The leather seat accepted me. It was cool and comfortable. Arthur closed the door. The sound was solid, a heavy thud that sealed out the world. The window rolled down smoothly. I looked out at them one last time. They stood there, framed by the dying light of the sunset, frozen in a tableau of shock and greed. The van driver was already packing up his gurney, shaking his head, muttering about not getting paid enough for this. Emily took a step toward the car, her hand outstretched. "Dad, wait," she cried. "We need to talk. You can't just leave. We are family." I pressed the button. The window rolled up. Her voice was cut off mid-scream. "Drive, Arthur," I said. The limousine pulled away smooth as silk. I didn't look back at the house I built. I didn't look back at the daughter I raised. I looked forward. I poured myself a glass of sparkling water from the crystal decanter in the console. I was going to the airport. I was going to fly to Italy. I was going to sit on a deck and watch the ocean. And while I was gone, Vera Sterling was going to unleash hell on the people standing in my driveway. I was 30,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean, sipping a glass of vintage champagne, when the chaos finally erupted back home. I wasn't there to see it in person, but the high-definition security cameras I had installed throughout the house 2 days prior captured every frame of the meltdown. Vera sent me the footage later, and I watched it on the private jet's monitor like it was the season finale of a reality show. As soon as my limousine disappeared from view, Emily and Liam didn't just stand there. They broke. The shock of seeing their poor, helpless father drive away in a luxury convoy shattered their reality. They ran up the porch steps, tripping over each other in their haste to get inside. They slammed the front door and immediately began tearing the house apart. They weren't looking for me. They were looking for the money. They were convinced I had hidden cash in the walls or under the floorboards. Liam overturned the kitchen table, the one I had built with my own hands, sending chairs skittering across the floor. Emily was ripping books off the shelves, shaking them violently, hoping bills would flutter out. They looked like wild animals, desperate and starving. "Where is it?" Emily screamed, her voice distorted by the microphone on the hidden camera near the fridge. "He can't afford a jet. He can't afford a suit like that. He stole it. He must have stolen it." Liam was in the bedroom throwing my clothes out of the closet. He ripped the mattress off the bed frame and sliced it open with a pocket knife, tearing out the stuffing in handfuls. There was nothing there, just foam and springs. They converged back in the kitchen, panting and sweating. The house was a wreck. The legacy of 40 years destroyed in 40 minutes of greed. Then Emily saw it. The trash can. The one I had dumped the rotting fruit into. But right on top, sitting on a pile of coffee grounds and banana peels, was a crumpled piece of paper. It wasn't the ticket itself. The ticket was safe in a vault in the Cayman Islands. It was the receipt. The receipt she had thrown at me on Sunday. The receipt for the gas station purchase. She lunged for the trash can, digging her manicured hands into the filth. She pulled out the receipt, wiping the coffee stains off on her expensive blouse. "Look," she gasped, holding it up to the light. "The date, Sunday, the time, 12:30. This is the receipt for the ticket I bought him." Liam grabbed his phone. His thumbs flew across the screen. He pulled up the lottery results for that Sunday. He read the numbers out loud. 7, 12, 31, 44, 58. Powerball 4. He looked at Emily. His face went slack. The blood drained from his cheeks, leaving him looking like a wax figure. "Emily," he whispered. "The jackpot that night. It was hit. One winner in our county." "How much?" Emily demanded, grabbing his arm. "How much, Liam?" Liam swallowed hard. $95 million. The scream that tore out of Emily's throat was not human. It was the sound of a banshee. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated loss. She fell to her knees on the dirty kitchen floor, clutching the receipt up, as if it were a holy relic. $95 million, she wailed. "He has $95 million. Then the shock turned into something else. It turned into entitlement. Her eyes snapped open and she scrambled to her feet. The tears stopped, instantly replaced by a cold, hard fury. "It is mine," she hissed. Liam looked at her confused. "What do you mean, Em? He has the ticket." "I bought it," she screamed, slamming her hand against the counter. "I paid for it. It is on my credit card statement. I have the receipt right here. I bought the ticket, therefore I own the winnings. He stole it from me. He stole my $95 million. The logic was twisted, insane, and completely illegal, but in her mind it was gospel. She had convinced herself in a split second that I was a thief and she was the victim. "Call the police," she ordered Liam. "Call them right now. Tell them my father stole a winning lottery ticket from me and is fleeing the country. Tell them to ground that jet." Liam dialed 911. I watched him pace the kitchen, explaining to a bewildered dispatcher that his father had stolen property worth millions. I could only imagine the operator's face. "He is an old man," Liam shouted into the phone. He is confused. He took something that doesn't belong to him. No, I don't have the ticket, but I have the receipt. Sir, you are not listening to me. This is grand larceny. He hung up the phone and threw it onto the counter. They said it is a civil matter. They said they can't stop a plane because of a family dispute over a lottery ticket. Useless, Emily shrieked. Everyone is useless. Call the lawyer. Call Preston's lawyer. We are going to sue him. We are going to freeze his assets. He isn't going to spend a dime of my money. They spent the next hour in a frenzy. They sat amidst the wreckage of my kitchen making call after call. They called every lawyer in the phone book. They spun a tale of a senile father who had snatched a ticket from his daughter's hand. They were building a fantasy world where they were the heroes. But while they were plotting their legal assault, my phone buzzed in my pocket 30,000 feet in the air. It was a message from Vera. They took the bait, she wrote. They are calling firms all over town. I just got a call from a partner at Davis & Lee asking if I represented you. It is time. I texted back one word: execute. Back on the screen, Emily and Liam were celebrating prematurely again. They had found a lawyer willing to listen, a bottom feeder who smelled a contingency fee. We are going to get it all, Emily said, her eyes gleaming with madness. We will prove he is incompetent. We will prove the ticket was a gift with conditions. We will take everything, Liam. The house, the money, the jet. He is going to wish he died on that mountain. Just then, Emily's phone rang. She looked at the screen. It was an unknown number. She picked it up, thinking it was the lawyer calling back. Hello, she said, putting on her professional voice. This is Emily Bennett. The voice on the other end was not a sleazy lawyer. It was Vera Sterling, and her voice was like ice water. Ms. Bennett. Vera said, her voice echoing clearly through the recording. My name is Vera Sterling. I am the trustee for the Silent Oak Trust and the personal attorney for Mr. Joseph Bennett. Emily froze. The color left her face again. You represent him, she whispered. I do, Vera said, and I am calling to inform you that your father is currently out of the jurisdiction. However, he has authorized me to handle all matters regarding his estate and his liabilities. Liabilities, Emily stammered. My father has money. He won the lottery. Mr. Bennett's financial status is not your concern, Vera said sharply. However, your financial status is of great concern to my client. I understand you are currently in possession of a receipt for a lottery ticket. Yes, Emily said, her confidence returning. It proves the ticket is mine. I bought it. That receipt proves you purchased an item, Vera corrected. The security footage from the gas station, which we have already subpoenaed, clearly shows you handing the ticket to your father and saying, and I quote, "Here, Dad, maybe you will get lucky. Under the law, that is a completed gift." Title transferred the moment he accepted it. The winnings belong solely to Mr. Bennett. Emily started to sputter, but Vera cut her off. Furthermore, Vera continued, her voice dropping an octave. My client has instructed me to address the outstanding debts you and your husband owe. We are aware of the liens, the defaulted loans, and the credit card fraud. Since you seem to be having trouble managing your affairs, Mr. Bennett has generously decided to intervene. Intervene how? Liam asked, leaning in to hear. By purchasing your debt, Vera said. The Silent Oak Trust has acquired the notes on your car, your credit cards, and as of this morning, the mortgage on the house Preston Miller is squatting in. You don't owe the bank anymore. You owe my client. Emily dropped the phone. It clattered onto the table. He bought our debt, she whispered. Ms. Bennett, Vera's voice came tinny and small from the speaker. I strongly suggest you come to my office tomorrow morning at 9:00 sharp. We have a settlement to discuss. And bring your checkbook. You are going to need it. The call ended. Emily looked at Liam. Liam looked at the ruin of my kitchen. He owns us, Liam said, his voice trembling. He didn't just leave. He bought us. Emily screamed again, but this time it wasn't anger. It was pure terror. She realized finally that the game had changed. She wasn't the player anymore. She was the piece, and she was about to be removed from the board. The elevator ride to the 40th floor of the Sterling and Associates building takes exactly 45 seconds, but for my daughter, her husband, and the leech attached to them, it must have felt like a lifetime. I watched the security feed from my laptop on the deck of a yacht in the Mediterranean. The sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds, but the scene playing out in Vera's conference room was far more captivating. They walked in like they owned the place. Emily was wearing a power suit she had likely charged to a credit card that was already maxed out. Liam was trailing behind her, carrying a briefcase that probably contained nothing but a sandwich and his own anxiety. And Preston? Preston had the audacity to show up. He was wearing his white tuxedo from the night before, looking disheveled and smelling of stale scotch and desperation. He wasn't even family, but where there is money, there is Preston. He had convinced them he was their negotiator, their heavy hitter. Vera didn't stand up when they entered. She sat at the head of a conference table that was long enough to land a small plane on. The room was glass and steel, offering a panoramic view of the city that my daughter desperately wanted to rule. Vera looked calm. She looked like a spider waiting for 3 very stupid flies. "Sit," she said. It wasn't a suggestion. They sat. Preston took the chair at the opposite end of the table, trying to establish dominance. Emily and Liam sat on the sides, flanking him like lieutenants in a war they were already losing. "We are not here to play games, Miss Sterling." Emily started slamming her hand on the polished mahogany. "We are here for my money. We know Joe is gone. We know he is hiding, but that doesn't change the facts." "And what are the facts, Ms. Bennett?" Vera asked, steepling her fingers. "The facts are that I purchased the winning lottery ticket," Emily spat. She reached into her purse and pulled out the crumpled coffee-stained receipt. She smoothed it out on the table with trembling fingers. "Look at this. This is my credit card number. This is the date. This is the time. I bought the ticket. Legally, that makes it mine. Joe Bennett stole it from me. He is a thief." Preston cleared his throat, leaning back in his chair. "It is a clear case of conversion, counselor," he rumbled, trying to sound like a lawyer. "The chain of custody is broken. The old man took advantage of a misunderstanding to misappropriate assets. We are willing to settle for 50% to avoid a messy legal battle. 50% and we walk away." Liam nodded vigorously, sweating through his collar. 50% is fair," he squeaked. "We are being generous." Vera looked at them. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. She just reached for a remote control sitting on the table. "It is interesting that you mention the chain of custody," she said, her voice cool and smooth like polished stone. "Because in the state of law, purchase does not equal ownership if a transfer of property has occurred. Specifically, a gift." "A gift," Emily scoffed. "I never gave him that ticket. I was holding it and he snatched it. He is senile. He got confused. He snatched it," Vera repeated. "Is that your official statement?" "Yes," Emily said, her chin jutting out defiantly. "He snatched it out of my hand. I never intended to give him a $95 million ticket. That is absurd." Vera pressed a button on the remote. A large screen descended from the ceiling, humming softly. "Well then," she said, "let us see what the camera at the gas station saw." The screen flickered to life. It was high-definition security footage. There was Emily standing at the counter of the Speedway station. She was wearing her Sunday brunch dress. She looked impatient, tapping her card on the reader. She bought a pack of gum and a single scratch-off ticket. Then the camera angle switched. It was the exterior camera pointing at the parking lot. But Vera didn't stop there. She pulled up a second file. This one wasn't from the gas station. It was from the security camera Liam had installed on their own patio to watch the gardener. The camera they had forgotten about. The image was crystal clear. The lunch, The plastic table. Me sitting alone in the sun. The video played. We watched Emily stand up. We watched her dig into her purse. We watched her pull out the ticket. And then we watched the toss. It was undeniable. The ticket fluttered through the air, landing in the dirt. And the audio was perfect. Here, Dad Emily's voice rang out in the silent conference room, tinny but unmistakable. I stopped at the gas station. I grabbed you a scratch-off. Maybe you will get lucky. Vera paused the video. The image of the ticket mid-air was frozen on the screen. Maybe you will get lucky, Vera repeated. And then the physical act of tossing the item to the recipient. In the eyes of the law, Ms. Bennett, that is a completed gift. You demonstrated donative intent. You delivered the item. And Mr. Bennett accepted it by picking it up. Once a gift is given, the donor has no legal claim to it regardless of its future value. If you give someone a rock and it turns out to be a diamond, you don't get the diamond back. Emily stared at the screen. Her face was a mask of horror. She was watching her own arrogance cost her $95 million. She was watching the moment she treated her father like a dog and realized it was the moment she signed her own financial death warrant. But I was joking, she stammered. It was a joke. The law doesn't have a sense of humor, Vera said, shutting off the screen. The ticket belongs to the Silent Oak Trust. It belongs to Joe Bennett. You have zero claim. If you sue, we will counter-sue for filing a frivolous action, and we will seek damages. And looking at your current financial state, I don't think you can afford to pay damages. Preston stood up, his chair scraping loudly. This is entrapment, he shouted, his face turning purple. You tricked us. Sit down, Mr. Miller, Vera said. Her voice cracked like a whip. I am not finished. We have established that the asset belongs to my client. Now let us discuss the liabilities. Liabilities? Liam asked, his voice barely a whisper. Vera reached under the table and pulled out a thick stack of file folders. She dropped them onto the mahogany with a heavy thud. The sound echoed like a gavel. Since Sunday morning, my client has been very busy, she said, opening the first folder. He has been acquiring assets, but not houses or boats. He has been acquiring paper. Specifically, your paper. She slid a document toward Liam. This is the promissory note for your business loan, she said. $300,000. Defaulted as of yesterday due to the fraud investigation regarding the collateral. The bank was happy to sell the debt to us for cents on the dollar. We now own this note. We are calling it due. Immediately. Liam looked at the paper as if it were a cobra. And this, she said, sliding another paper toward Emily. This is your car lease. And your credit card debt. All 4 cards. Maxed out. We bought those too. She turned to Preston. He was trying to inch toward the door. Don't think I forgot about you, Mr. Miller, she said. Or should I call you by your alias from Nevada? We bought the mortgage on the foreclosure property you are squatting in. We also bought the judgments against you from your previous investors. You owe the Silent Oak Trust approximately $4 million. Preston froze. The blood drained from his face, leaving him looking old and gray. What do you want? Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face. We want payment, Vera said calmly. In full. Today. We don't have it, Emily sobbed. You know we don't have it. Then we will begin asset seizure, Vera said, closing the folders. We will take the cars. We will take the furniture. We will garnish your wages. We will take everything until the debt is satisfied. This is a collection proceeding, Ms. Bennett. And my client is a very motivated creditor. But he is my father! Emily wailed, looking at the camera lens in the corner of the room as if she knew I was watching. He wouldn't do this. He loves me. Vera looked at the camera too. Then she looked back at Emily. He did love you, Vera said. He loved you enough to build you a life. He loved you enough to give you everything he had, and you treated him like trash. You tried to put him in a state-run facility to rot. You tried to sell his memories for a quick buck. You broke him, Ms. Bennett. And now he is fixing the mistake. She stood up, signaling the meeting was over. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises you are currently renting, Vera said. The landlord is also a client of ours now. I suggest you start packing. And Mr. Miller, she looked at Preston, who was shaking. There are 2 FBI agents waiting in the lobby. They would like to have a word with you about wire fraud. I believe my client sent them a dossier. Preston didn't wait. He bolted for the door. But as he opened it, 2 men in dark suits were standing right there. They didn't even have to chase him. They just cuffed him and dragged him away, his white tuxedo bunching up around his shoulders. Emily and Liam sat there alone in the big glass room. They were stripped bare. No money, no house, no car, no friends. Vera looked at them one last time. You wanted to split the ticket, right? Vera asked. Well, you got your wish. Joe got the winnings. You got the consequences. She walked out of the room, leaving them sitting in the wreckage of their own greed. I closed my laptop. The sun had set over the Mediterranean. The sky was full of stars. I took a sip of my wine. It was the best glass I had ever tasted. The lesson was delivered. Now all that was left was to watch them learn it. The door to the conference room didn't just open, it swung wide with the weight of finality. I walked in. I wasn't the man they saw on Sunday huddled over a plastic table eating a burnt burger. I wasn't the man in the dusty Ford truck apologizing for his existence. I was wearing a navy suit cut from Italian wool that cost more than Liam's car. My shoes didn't squeak against the floor, they commanded it. I walked to the head of the table and stood next to Vera. Emily gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. Dad, she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of terror and a pathetic flicker of hope. You came back. You are here to help us, right? You are here to stop this madness. I looked at her. I looked at the daughter who had thrown a lottery ticket in the dirt. I didn't see my little girl anymore. I saw a stranger who owed me money. I didn't come back to help you, Emily, I said, my voice filling the room, calm and cold as the bottom of the ocean. I came back to collect. Liam looked up, sweat beading on his forehead. Collect what, Joe? We don't have anything. You know we don't have anything. I leaned forward, placing my hands on the mahogany table. The gold Patek Philippe on my wrist clinked against the wood, a sound that rang like a bell. You are wrong, Liam, I said. You have debt, mountains of it. And as of this morning, I own every single inch of that mountain. I signaled to Vera. She slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It landed in front of them, perfectly centered. $850,000, I said. They stared at the paper. That is the total, I continued. I bought your mortgage from the bank that was about to foreclose. I bought the note on your leased Range Rover. I bought the debt from your maxed-out credit cards. I even bought the personal loan you took out from that shark across town, the one you thought nobody knew about. I paid him cash this morning. He was very happy to transfer the obligation to me. Liam's face went gray. You bought our debt, he choked out. Why? Why would you do that? Because I wanted to be the one to foreclose on you, I said. I am your landlord now. I am your bank. I am the man who holds the title to your life. And I am calling the loan due, immediately. Emily stood up, her chair scraping violently against the floor. You can't do this, she screamed. You can't just demand that kind of money. We need time. We need a payment plan. We are family. I laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound. Family, I repeated. Family is the people who don't try to lock you in a state-run facility to rot. Family is the people who don't try to steal your home. You stopped being family the moment you taped that eviction notice to my door. Now you are just debtors. And I am a very impatient creditor. I looked them dead in the eye. You have 24 hours to pay me $850,000 in certified funds, I said. If you don't, I will exercise my right to seize collateral. I will take the cars. I will take the furniture. I will garnish every paycheck you ever earn until the day you die. I will strip you down to the floorboards, just like you tried to do to me. Preston, who had been sitting in stunned silence, suddenly stood up. He adjusted his white tuxedo jacket, trying to summon the ghost of his former arrogance. He put on his salesman's smile, the one he used to swindle retirees out of their pensions. Now hold on a minute, Joe, he boomed, trying to take control of the room. Let's all calm down. There is no need for threats. We are all businessmen here. Surely we can work something out. Maybe a partnership. With your capital and my connections, we could turn this around. We could double that $95 million. I looked at Preston. I looked at the man who had poisoned my daughter's mind with greed. The man who had called me a burden. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a thick dossier. It was the file Cole, the private investigator, had given me, the one Emily had shredded on my front lawn. But I had copies. I always had copies. I didn't hand it to him. I threw it. The heavy file hit Preston square in the chest. Papers flew everywhere, scattering across the table like white feathers. I don't need a partner, Preston, I said, my voice dropping to a growl. And I certainly don't need a con artist who has been bankrupt since 2019. Preston scrambled to pick up the papers. He saw the mugshot. He saw the fraud indictments from Nevada. His hands started to shake uncontrollably. Where did you get this? He whispered. It doesn't matter where I got it, I said. What matters is where it is going. I pointed to the door. You thought you were playing me, Preston. You thought I was a stupid old carpenter you could push around. But you forgot one thing. Carpenters know how to spot rot. And you are rotten to the core. Preston tried to back away toward the emergency exit, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. I am leaving, he stammered. You can't keep me here. This is kidnapping. I am walking out that door. Go ahead, I said, stepping aside. Open it. Preston rushed to the door. He grabbed the handle and threw it open, expecting freedom. Instead, he found the FBI. 2 agents in windbreakers were standing right there, filling the doorway. Behind them were 2 uniformed police officers. They didn't look happy. Preston Miller, one of the agents said, stepping into the room. Or is it Preston Miles today? We have a warrant for your arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and 12 counts of interstate racketeering. Preston stumbled back, tripping over his own feet. No, he cried. No, you have the wrong man. This is a mistake. My lawyer. I need my lawyer. You can call him from the holding cell, the agent said, spinning Preston around and slamming him against the wall. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Emily screamed. It was a sound of pure horror. She watched as her idol, the man she had tried so hard to impress, was dragged out of the room in cuffs, kicking and screaming about his rights. He scammed $12 million from investors, Emily, I said, watching him go. And he was about to scam you. He was going to use your name on the loan documents. He was going to leave you holding the bag for a federal crime. I looked at my daughter. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. She looked small. She looked like a child who had broken a valuable vase and knew there was no way to fix it. But he had a jet, she whispered. He had the cruise tickets. Stolen, I said. All of it bought with stolen credit cards and lies, just like the life you were trying to build. I turned back to Liam. He was sitting with his head in his hands, sobbing quietly. And you, I said, you went along with it. You knew he was shady, but you were too greedy to care. You sold out your wife's father for a chance to sit at the big table. Well, Liam, you are at the big table now. How does it feel? Liam didn't answer. He just cried. I walked over to the window. I looked out at the city. The sun was shining, but in this room it was cold. "You have 24 hours, I said without turning around. "Get the money or get out. The locks change tomorrow at noon." I heard them leave. I heard the shuffle of feet, the sound of sobbing, the heavy click of the door closing. I was alone in the room with Vera. "Well done, Joe," she said softly. "Brutal, but well done." I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel joy. I felt a heavy sense of completion, like finishing a house that you know no one will ever live in. "Is it over?" I asked. "Not yet," she said. "We still have the final act." I nodded. I adjusted my cuffs. "Then let's finish it," I said. "Let's take it all." The deadline arrived with the setting sun casting long shadows over the manicured lawn of the mansion my daughter had pretended to own. It was 8:00 at night. The 24 hours I had given them to come up with $850,000 had evaporated. I pulled up to the curb, not in a limousine this time, but in my own truck. I wanted to do this myself. I wanted to look them in the eye without a chauffeur standing between us. Behind me, a line of vehicles idled in the twilight. A sheriff's cruiser with its lights spinning silently, and 2 large moving trucks. I walked up the driveway. The house was dark except for the porch light. They were inside waiting. Maybe they thought I wouldn't show up. Maybe they thought because I was their father I would fold at the last minute. They still didn't understand that the father they knew had died the moment they plotted to erase him. I stepped onto the porch. The door opened before I could knock. Emily stood there. She looked wrecked. Her hair was matted, her eyes were swollen, and she was wearing sweatpants. Beside her stood Liam, looking like a ghost. But it was what Emily was holding that stopped me cold. She was holding my grandson, Leo. He is 5 years old, a sweet boy with his grandmother's eyes. He was clutching a stuffed bear, looking confused and frightened by the tension radiating off his parents. Emily was using him as a shield. She was holding him up like a human crucifix, hoping to ward off the consequences of her sins. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask me in. She dropped to her knees right there on the doormat, dragging the poor boy down with her. The concrete scraped against her knees, but she didn't seem to feel it. "Dad, please," she wailed, her voice ragged. "Look at him. Look at Leo. You can't do this to him. He is innocent. He needs a home, Dad. He needs his room. You are going to throw your own grandson out on the street in the middle of the night." Leo started to cry. "Mommy, get up," he whimpered. "I want to go inside." Emily squeezed him tighter, making him cry harder. "Tell Grandpa not to hurt us, Leo," she sobbed into his hair. "Tell Grandpa we need our house." I felt a surge of bile rise in my throat. It was the lowest thing I had ever seen. She was weaponizing a child's fear to save her own skin. She wasn't protecting him, she was traumatizing him to manipulate me. I stepped closer. I looked down at them. I didn't feel the waver she was hoping for. I felt a cold iron resolve hardening in my chest. "Get up, Emily," I said, my voice low and hard. "Stop scaring the boy." "I won't get up," she screamed, clutching Leo's shirt. "Not until you sign the papers to let us stay. Not until you forgive the debt. Do it for him, Dad. If you have a heart, do it for Leo." I looked at my grandson. I saw the terror in his eyes. He didn't understand mortgages or fraud or betrayal. He just knew his mother was screaming and his grandfather was the reason. I reached into my jacket pocket. I didn't pull out a checkbook. I pulled out a thick envelope sealed with red wax. I knelt down. Not to her level, but to Leo's. I looked him in the eye, ignoring his mother's hysterics. "Leo," I said softly, "everything is going to be okay. You are going to be safe." Then I looked at Emily. My eyes bored into hers. "You think I didn't think of him?" I asked. You think I would let your incompetence and greed destroy his future the way you tried to destroy mine? I held up the envelope. This is a trust fund, I said, my voice cutting through her sobs. I set it up this morning with Vera. It is an irrevocable educational and living trust for Leo. Emily's eyes widened. Hope flared in them, a greedy, desperate spark. How much, she whispered. Enough, I said. Enough to send him to the best schools in the country, from kindergarten to his PhD. Enough to buy him a house when he is 25 up. Enough to make sure he never has to worry about a roof over his head or food on his table. Give it to me, she said, reaching for the envelope, her fingers twitching. I will manage it for him. I am his mother. I pulled the envelope back. No, I said. That is the catch, Emily. You don't get to touch it. You don't get to see it. You don't even get to know the account number. The trustee is Vera Sterling. If you try to access these funds, if you try to borrow against them, if you even try to convince Leo to give you a dime, the trust dissolves and the money goes to charity. The hope in her eyes died, replaced by a dark, hollow void. But we need it now, she hissed. We need it to live. No, I corrected her, standing up and towering over her. Leo needs it for his future. You need to learn a lesson. I pointed to the street where the moving trucks were idling. You and Liam are able-bodied adults, I said. You have hands. You have feet. You have brains, even if you refuse to use them. You are going to do what I did. You are going to do what every honest person does. You are going to go out there and work. You are going to flip burgers or scrub floors or dig ditches. I don't care. But you are going to earn your own way. But we can't, she wailed. We have reputations. We can't work minimum wage. Then you will starve, I said simply. But Leo won't. I turned to the sheriff, who was standing by his car, looking uncomfortable but ready to do his job. Sheriff, execute the order, I said. The sheriff nodded and signaled the movers. They marched up the driveway, a squad of men in blue uniforms. They walked past Emily, who was still kneeling on the porch. No, she screamed, scrambling to her feet and blocking the door. You can't come in. This is my house. We bought this house. Liam stepped out from the shadows of the hallway. He looked defeated. We didn't buy it. He whispered, his voice hollow. We rented it. And we haven't paid the rent in 3 months. Joe bought the property from the landlord this morning. He owns it. Emily spun around to look at me. You bought the house, she gasped. I bought the house, I confirmed, and I am evicting the squatters. I pulled a document from my pocket. It was the eviction order signed by a judge an hour ago. You have 10 minutes to grab your essentials, I said. Clothes, toiletries. The movers will box up the rest and put it in storage. You can pay to get it out when you find a job. Emily looked at me with pure hatred. It was a look I will never forget. It was the look of a parasite realizing the host has finally cut it off. I hate you, she screamed. I wish you had died on that mountain. I know, I said calmly. That is why I am doing this. She grabbed Leo's hand and dragged him inside. I heard them running around, throwing things into suitcases. I stood on the porch and waited. 10 minutes later, they came out. They were carrying 3 Louis Vuitton suitcases bulging at the seams. That was it. That was their life. They walked down the driveway, past the sheriff, past the movers who were already starting to haul out the expensive leather sofas Emily had bought on credit. They reached the street. Their Range Rover was parked there, gleaming under the streetlights. It was their last symbol of status, their last connection to the life they thought they deserved. Emily marched toward the driver's side, fumbling for her keys. We are leaving, she shouted back at me. We are going to a hotel. And when we get back on our feet, I am going to sue you for everything you have. I didn't say anything. I just nodded to the tow truck driver who had been waiting in the shadows down the block. The truck roared to life. It backed up quickly, its reverse lights bathing Emily and Liam in a harsh red glow. "What is this?" Emily screamed as the driver hopped out and hooked the chains onto the Range Rover's bumper. "Get away from my car!" The driver didn't even look at her. He cranked the lever. The front of the SUV lifted into the air, the metal groaning. "Repossession, ma'am," the driver said, lighting a cigarette. The note holder called it in. Defaulted payments. The note holder. That was me. I had bought the car loan along with everything else. "No!" Emily shrieked, grabbing the door handle of the car as it rose into the air. "No, you can't take my car! How are we supposed to get to a hotel? How are we supposed to live?" The car kept rising, lifting her off her feet until she had to let go. She fell back onto the asphalt, scraping her palms. I walked down the driveway. I stopped a few feet away from her. "There is a bus stop 3 blocks over," I said, pointing down the road. "It runs every hour." That is how regular people get around Emily. You should get used to it. The tow truck drove off, dragging the Range Rover behind it. The sound of the tires squealing against the pavement was the final punctuation mark on their sentence. Emily stood in the middle of the street, watching her car disappear. She let out a scream that tore through the quiet suburban night. It wasn't a scream of sadness. It was a scream of a spoiled child who had finally been told no. It was the sound of an ego shattering. Liam sat on his suitcase, his head in his hands, weeping silently. Leo was hugging his teddy bear, watching his mother scream, his eyes wide and knowing. I walked over to Leo. I crouched down. I slipped a card into his pocket. It had Vera's number on it. "If you need anything, buddy," I whispered. "If you are hungry, if you are scared, you call this number." "Okay." He nodded solemnly. "Okay, Grandpa." I stood up. I turned my back on my daughter and her husband. I walked back up the driveway to the mansion they had pretended was theirs. I signaled the sheriff to lock the door. I got into my truck. I drove away, leaving them standing on the curb with their designer suitcases and their empty pockets. I didn't feel guilt. I felt the clean, sharp pain of setting a bone so it could heal correctly. They had hit rock bottom. Now they had a choice. They could stay there or they could climb, but they were going to have to climb with their own hands. 6 months have passed since I drove away from the curb, leaving my daughter screaming at a tow truck. 6 months since I watched the house of cards she built collapse under the weight of her own greed. The view from my deck this evening is a little different than the view from my old porch. I am not looking at a gravel driveway or a rusted mailbox. I am looking at the Amalfi Coast. The cliffs of Positano are rising out of the Mediterranean Sea, bathed in the golden light of a sun that feels warmer here than it ever did back home. The water is a shade of blue that looks painted deep and endless. I am sitting on the aft deck of the Catherine. She is a 120-foot yacht, sleek and white, and she belongs to me. Not to a bank, not to a leasing company, to me. I named her after the woman who would have loved this view more than anything in the world. Across from me sits Gus. He is wearing a floral shirt that is frankly an assault on the eyes, and a pair of sunglasses that cost more than his old pickup truck. He is eating a plate of fresh calamari and laughing at something the stewardess said. Gus was the man who helped me buy back my grandfather's clock when my daughter sold it for scrap. He was the man who stood by me when I was just a contractor with a bad back. Now he is my travel companion. I told him to pack a bag 6 months ago, and he hasn't looked back since. This is the life, Joe. Gus says, raising his glass of Chianti. I gotta say it beats hauling drywall up 3 flights of stairs in July. It sure does, Gus, I reply, taking a sip of my own drink. It is an 18-year-old Scotch, smooth as silk. It sure does. My tablet buzzes on the table next to me. It is a satellite connection, secure and encrypted. Only a handful of people have this address. Vera Sterling, my broker. And unfortunately, my daughter. I haven't changed my email address. I suppose a part of me wanted to keep that one channel open. Not because I wanted to reconcile, but because I wanted to know. I wanted to know if she had learned. I wanted to know if the rock bottom I sent her to had taught her how to climb. I pick up the tablet. A notification flashes on the screen. Subject: Please, Dad. Emergency. I don't feel a spike of adrenaline. I don't feel worry. I just feel a dull curiosity. I tap the screen. The email is long. It is rambling. It is written by someone whose hands were shaking or whose mind was racing. Dad, it says, I don't know where you are. I don't know if you will even read this, but I have nowhere else to turn. We are living in a studio apartment in the industrial district. It is the only place that would rent to us with our credit ruined. Liam is working construction, but his back gave out, and he can't work this week. I pause. Liam working construction. The irony is rich. The man who mocked my calloused hands is now learning what it feels like to trade sweat for bread. I am working double shifts at a diner on 4th Street. The email continues. My feet are bleeding, Dad. I serve coffee to people I used to go to high school with. They look at me with pity. It is humiliating. Humiliating. She still worries about how she looks. She hasn't learned yet. We are behind on everything she writes. They are going to cut off the power tomorrow. I am attaching the bill. It is $114.50. Please, Dad. I know you have it. Just this once. For Leo. He is cold. I look at the attachment. It is a photo of a disconnection notice. Final warning. The amount is highlighted in yellow marker. $114. She is using Leo again. She is using my grandson as a bargaining chip. But she forgets that I know Leo is safe. Vera checks on him every week. The trust I set up pays for his school, his clothes, his medical bills. Vera ensures the money goes directly to the providers, so Emily can't touch a cent. Leo is warm. Leo is fed. Emily is the one who is cold because she spent her life burning bridges to keep herself warm. I look at the amount. $100. 6 months ago, she threw a $2 ticket at me and told me to get lucky. She spent $20,000 on a cruise for a con man to impress strangers. And now she is begging the man she called trash for money to keep the lights on. I look up at the sunset. The sky is bleeding purple and orange into the sea. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I look at Gus. He is happy. He is content. He never asked me for a dime. I pick up the tablet. I don't open my banking app. I open the camera. Gus, I say, take a picture of me. Gus wipes his mouth and grabs the tablet. He grins. You want the sunset in the background, Joe? I want the whole world in the background, I say. I lean back in the teak chair. I hold up my glass of scotch. The amber liquid catches the dying light. I smile. It isn't a mean smile. It is the smile of a man who is exactly where he is supposed to be. Click. I take the tablet back. The photo is perfect. I look healthy. I look rested. I look rich. Not just money rich, soul rich. I attach the photo to the reply email. I type slowly, my fingers tapping against the glass. Hello, Emily. I received your message. It sounds like you are having a tough week. I remember those weeks. I remember working 16 hours a day to pay for your braces. I remember eating bologna sandwiches so you could have hot lunches. I remember the dignity of earning my own way. You asked for help. You asked for money. I am looking at this photo of me. I am sitting on a boat that I own drinking scotch that is older than your marriage. I am doing this with the winnings from a $2 ticket. The ticket you threw in the dirt. I am very busy right now, Emily. I am busy spending my $2 investment. It takes a lot of work to enjoy this much freedom. I can't send you the money, not because I don't have it, but because you need to learn how to get it yourself. You have a job. You have hands. You have feet. That is all I had. Keep working. The humiliation you feel is just your ego dying. Let it die. What is left underneath might be a person worth knowing someday. Have a good shift. Remember, labor is glory. Dad. I press send. The message whooshes away, carried by invisible signals up to a satellite and down to a dingy apartment where my daughter is waiting for a savior who isn't coming. She will read it. She will scream. She will cry. She will hate me. But tomorrow she will go to work. She will pour coffee. She will stand on her hurting feet. And she will earn that $100. And when she pays that bill with money she sweated for, she will feel something she has never felt in her life. Pride. Or she won't. It is up to her. I look at the tablet. It is just a machine. A window into a past I have outgrown. I stand up and walk to the railing of the yacht. The water is far below, churning white against the hull. You okay? Joe, Gus asks, watching me. I am perfect, Gus, I say. I hold the tablet out over the water. I think about the contacts in it. The lawyers, the accountants, the daughter. I don't need the connection anymore. I have set everything in motion. The trusts are irrevocable. The lessons are taught. The debts are collected. I open my hand. The tablet falls. It tumbles end over end, flashing silver in the twilight. It hits the water with a small, insignificant splash and disappears instantly, swallowed by the wake of my new life. I take a deep breath of the salt air. It smells clean. It smells like freedom. I turn back to Gus. Pour me another drink, I say. We have a lot of world to see. Gus pours. We clink glasses. The sun slips below the horizon, extinguishing the day. I am Joseph Bennett. I was a builder. I was a father. I was a burden. Now I am just a man sailing into the night. And for the first time in 40 years, I answer to no one. Never underestimate the hand that raised you. You might just find that when you bite it, it is the only hand that was holding you up. And once it lets go, you have a long way to fall. The true measure of a person isn't found in the price tag of their gifts or the luxury of their cars, but in how they treat those who they believe have nothing to offer them. My daughter chased the illusion of wealth and lost the reality of love. She forgot that the foundation of a good life is built on respect, hard work, and loyalty, not on shortcuts and appearances. Money is a powerful tool, but it is a terrible master. It can buy a house, but it cannot buy a home. It can buy companions, but never loyalty. In the end, character is the only currency that never loses its value, and the bridges you burn today may be the only way back tomorrow. If you believe that respect is earned, and karma always collects its debt, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of justice served cold.